Yes.
Commissioner, in this hearing block, I appear with Mr Sherman, Mr Bashara and Mr Rowe.
Yes.
And Commissioner, I note you've granted a number of parties leave to appear, some of whom are represented by counsel in the hearing room, and perhaps they could announce their appearance.
Yes, indeed.
Commissioner, my name is Kaplan. I appear with also for the Commonwealth.
Thank you, Mr Kaplan.
Commissioner, my name is Sharp. I appear for the State of New South Wales.
Yes.
Please, Commission, my name is Bender. I appear for the mainstream Jewish community bodies.
Yes, thank you, Mr Bender. Yes.
Commissioner, this is the first day of hearing block 3, in which we will examine anti-Semitism online, in the media and on social media. This is a particularly important aspect of term of reference A. Social media and online communications are central to contemporary social interaction, so it is central to the task of tackling anti-Semitism to find practical and effective ways to stem the awful tide of anti-Semitic hate that the evidence will show is a pervasive feature of many online environments and social media platforms. There will be 4 main areas of inquiry during this hearing block. First, the lived experience of anti-Semitism online and on social media. Secondly, the prevalence and manifestations of anti-Semitism online and what social media platforms are doing or could be doing to combat it. Thirdly, the conduct of public broadcasters, the ABC and the SBS. And fourthly, measures available to government to counteract and prevent anti-Semitism online. I'll briefly describe some of the evidence that is expected to be led in this hearing block and introduce some of the issues that I expect to be ventilated and examined in the next few weeks. The first area of inquiry is the lived experience of anti-Semitism online and on social media. Commissioner, you have already heard in the first hearing block from a number of witnesses who recounted traumatic anti-Semitic experiences on social media. In this hearing block, you will hear further evidence about the impact of online anti-Semitism on the daily life of Jewish Australians. I'll mention 2 of the witnesses for present purposes. The experience of the first witness to be called this morning is an extraordinary and confronting example of the problem of anti-Semitism on social media. Mr Arsen Ostrovsky sustained an injury at Bondi on the 14th of December 2025. A photo showing the injury was published online. Within hours, he was subjected to online harassment and abuse. Within a day, deepfake images were created and posted across several social media platforms, which showed artificially generated scenes in which he was depicted as laughing while his face was painted with red makeup, as though he was faking his injury. A video was invented and circulated, which suggested various conspiracy theories, including that Mr Ostrovsky was part of a false flag operation and was in truth unharmed. He flagged a number of posts with X, with Instagram and Facebook, and with YouTube. To date, only Meta has taken action in response to his complaints by removing the relevant AI-manipulated posts from Instagram and Facebook. You will also hear evidence today from Mr Steven Lowy AM. Mr Lowy is the principal of the Lowy family group and a prominent businessman and philanthropist. His statement records a long and shocking history of anti-Semitic abuse and threats against him and against the members of his family. He describes that in recent years that has become a relentless campaign of online abuse, harassment and threats. The Lowy family is required to maintain a security team, one of the functions of which is to review hostile online content and escalate critical content to law enforcement authorities. In the 12 months to February 2026, that security team reviewed more than 15,000 items of hostile online content and identified more than 200 unique individuals posting that content. For the Lowy family, the extent of anti-Semitic abuse to which they are subjected requires its own ongoing and substantial security response and constant engagement with the police. A number of other witnesses will be called to describe their lived experience of anti-Semitism online, both today and later in the week. Some of those witnesses are Jewish individuals in the creative arts, a group which has experienced online anti-Semitism in a distinct and unsettling way. One of the experts to be called in respect of the nature and prevalence of anti-Semitism online is Dr Matteo Vigani, the founder and co-director of the Tackling Hate which is a research hub that has operated out of Deakin University since April 2025. He will describe the pioneering work of that organisation in measuring and understanding online hate in Australia through systematic big data analytics in respect of anti-Jewish hate and anti-Muslim hate. As has occurred in previous hearing blocks, Commissioner, I note your determination that some of the witnesses should give evidence under a pseudonym and without showing their faces on the live stream. Where those arrangements are in place, they reflect earlier non-publication directions that you have issued. I observe that it may be a criminal offence or a contempt of this Commission to breach a non-publication direction. The second area of inquiry is anti-Semitism and the social media platforms. The evidence will address the current approach of social media platforms to the regulation of anti-Semitic content that is published on the services they provide to Australian users. In my remarks this morning, I will also give an outline of the Commission's engagement with the platforms. It has become increasingly apparent that the online environment, and social media platforms in particular, are perhaps the most significant vector for the spread of anti-Semitism and hate in the community. At the extreme end of the inquiry into anti-Semitism online is the potential for the online environment to function as an incubator of anti-Semitic violence. A recent observation of the Director General of Security, Mike Burgess, when he was delivering ASIO's 2026 terrorism threat assessment recently on the 24th of June, reflects a broad consensus of expert evidence received by the Royal Commission that the online environment can be a potent driver of radicalisation. Mr. Burgess said this: whether online or in the real world, when intolerance is tolerated, when violent language and violent acts are left unchecked, they become normalised, reinforcing the impression they are acceptable and compounding the likelihood of further violence. The Director General emphasised the threat posed to Australian society by online radicalisation and the challenges that intelligence and law enforcement agencies face in both identifying and neutralising those who may move from online hatred to real-world violence. The Commission will examine measures to address the dissemination of religiously or ideologically motivated extremist content, a broader problem that of course includes anti-Semitic content. Commissioner, in the interim report, you noted that research by the Australian Institute of Criminology in 2023 highlighted that a significant number of violent extremist offenders, perhaps up to 60%, either radicalise primarily online or have significant online influences in their radicalisation. ASIO and the AFP confirm the increasing trend and tendency for disaffected people to become radicalised online. It is an urgent and serious problem. Some steps to address this are already underway. On the 6th of May 2026, the Minister for Home Affairs, the Director General of Security and the AFP Commissioner jointly announced the government's investment of $74 million over 2 years in the Counter-Terrorism Online Centre. The centre, which is to be operated by ASIO and the AFP, intends to progress the Commonwealth response to what it calls the new emerging threat online, which the Minister said involves 4 characteristics which were not traditionally part of counter-terrorism operations: individuals being radicalised online, being radicalised fast, having a mixed ideology, and being young. You will hear further evidence about the Counter-Terrorism Online Centre during the course of this hearing block. There is also a huge amount of anti-Semitism online that may not raise immediate concerns about consequential violence, but is nevertheless very damaging to individuals and has a malevolent influence on social discourse. There are real challenges in dealing with anti-Semitism, hate and extremism in the online environment. I'll mention 5 of the challenges. First, the accountability of users and platforms for what takes place online is problematic. People can and do write things online that they might never vocalise on the street or say in a meeting. The online environment often provides anonymity, a lack of legal accountability, and a lack of available safety measures or protective steps that a user can implement or call on. It has resulted in an environment where anti-Semitism and online hate have been allowed to flourish. Secondly, to date, regulatory responses have not been as effective as they should be in addressing the concerns of the Jewish community and the Australian community more broadly. Thirdly, while some platforms have been more effective than others in addressing the spread of online hate, the responses of social media platforms to online hate are too often opaque, slow, and reactive. It would be neither accurate nor fair to treat the social media platforms as if they are all the same. They are not. They do not all have a common approach to online hate, and they do not have a uniform approach to dealing with attempts in Australia to address anti-Semitic content. Some of the platforms have engaged meaningfully with the Commission. Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, and TikTok have each been granted leave to appear in this hearing block. As I will explain further in a moment, some other social media platforms have been much less forthcoming. The fourth challenge posed by the online environment is that the pace of technological change makes it difficult for government and regulators to respond both to instances of hate and the root causes of that hate in a timely way. Static regulatory frameworks are ill-equipped to deal with the pace of change, including the rapid development of AI technologies. Fifthly, the attitudes of some social media platforms to regulation and accountability is a very substantial challenge. The corporations that provide social media and online services to Australians are not charities. Their revenues from advertising to Australians are not readily ascertainable. They provide such important communication services to the public, to government and to business at such a vast and pervasive national scale that Australians are entitled to expect that their operation should be accompanied by the highest standards of corporate governance and corporate social responsibility. The evidence will show that the major platforms have recently made efforts to strengthen their content moderation policies and improve the avenues by which users can report anti-Semitic and other hateful content online. In some cases, the platforms have taken the initiative themselves. In other cases, they have been forced to act by regulatory changes such as the Digital Services Act in the EU and the Online Safety Act in the UK. The information available to the Commission confirms that some major platforms, including Meta and TikTok, have meaningfully engaged with the Jewish representative organisations to understand and respond to their concerns about the prevalence of anti-Semitic content on the platforms. At the same time, it cannot be denied that there remain real gaps and weaknesses in the approach of many platforms to the detection and timely removal of hateful content. We expect to explore those issues with an eye to potential recommendations that the Commission may make for more effective regulation in this difficult area. One of the experts to be called in respect of general approaches to platform governance is Professor Terry Flew, a Professor of Digital Communications and Culture in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences at the University of Sydney. He will address the topics of platform moderation and regulatory design, examining various regulatory models and their effectiveness. Commissioner, you also hear from Dr Robert Nichols, a Senior Research Associate at the University of Sydney Centre for AI Trust and Governance. He will address the mechanisms available to Australian legislatures and regulators to address the challenges in controlling the publication of anti-Semitic and other extremist content online. In his opinion, the regulatory framework best adapted to address the dissemination and proliferation of hate speech and harmful content online is by a mandatory registration and licensing framework underpinned by a statutory duty of care. Evidence will also be called from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, which is based in London, in respect of the scale and nature of anti-Semitic hate online and in respect of platform responsibility and governance. One area that will be explored in evidence is content moderation, particularly as to what constitutes best practice. The use of large language models and AI generally to conduct content moderation may involve a reduction in or a more limited role for human content moderators. The problem is acute because much online hate can go undetected without the benefit of experienced moderators who are alive to nuances of context and the methods used by purveyors of online hate to game AI filters. Two real examples taken from the evidence of Mr. Steven Lowy AM is the use of the expression "Jill all Qs" rather than "kill all Jews," and the use of a juice box emoji as code for Jews. Nevertheless, it is difficult to deny that automated content moderation systems present real and beneficial opportunities for faster and more accurate content moderation at scale. The concern is to ensure that these systems are deployed by the platforms responsibly to augment rather than replace much needed human input and judgment. The online environment also provides a fertile ground for considering again the dividing line between legitimate criticism of the State of Israel and anti-Semitism. We will explore in this hearing block whether the platform's definitions of anti-Semitism are too restrictive or fail to recognise the point at which the expression of trenchant criticism of Israel becomes a proxy for expression of hatred against Jews as Jews. This will be addressed in the evidence of Andre Oberle, who touched on this issue in hearing block 1. Some of the platforms, to their credit, have taken steps to recognise the shifting nature of anti-Semitic content online. For example, Meta announced in July 2024 that it was adopting the policy of removing speech targeting Zionists, where the term was used to refer to Jews and Israelis with dehumanising comparisons, calls for harm, or denials of existence. Similarly, TikTok announced in October 2024 that it would act against content that uses Zionist as a proxy for a protected attribute when it is not used to refer to a political ideology and instead used and proxy with Jewish or Israeli identity. Other platforms, however, do not appear to be as alive to the potential for anti-Semitism to masquerade as anti-Zionism. Another issue to be considered is the extent to which social media platforms have regressed in content moderation standards in response to perceived changes in the regulatory climate, particularly in the United States. Perhaps the most prominent recent example is the announcement by Meta in January 2025 of significant changes to its hateful content policy and moderation practices, including the phasing out of proactive removal of content and third-party fact-checking in the United States in favour of reliance on user reports of harmful content and crowdsourced content moderation through the Community Notes feature. A witness from Meta, Mr. Benjamin Good, who is the core policy director at the platform, frankly acknowledges in a statement that he's provided to the Commission that for some policy areas, including hateful conduct, Meta's enforcement is now mostly reactive. This puts the burden on users to report harmful content to the platform, which may or may not act, and which may act only well after the content has reached end users. And it does de-emphasise the role of the platforms in proactively removing content. Dr. Oberle will give evidence that his organisation, the Online Hate Prevention Institute, has observed a marked decline in removal rates and removal times for hateful speech since the January 2025 policy change came into effect. While Meta continues to use third-party fact-checking in Australia, the Commission will explore whether Meta may be contemplating ceasing doing so and rolling out the Community Notes features to other markets, including Australia. It must be said that the Commission has encountered resistance or refusal from some platforms in its attempt to attain relevant documents and information. A common refrain is that the local platform entities based in Australia, to which the Commission directed compulsory notices, do not deliver the services to Australian end users, and that those services are provided to Australians by offshore entities, typically in the United States, from which the local entities say they are unable to obtain documents or information other than on a voluntary basis. Counsels assisting do not suggest that such a response inaccurately states the legal position. In some cases, the local entities were able to obtain responsive documents and information from the offshore parent companies on a voluntary basis, which is appreciated. It does require an element of caution, however, because the absence of a compulsory regime of production of a comprehensive suite of documents and information necessarily affects the confidence that can be placed in the information that has been made available. Some platforms have simply failed to engage with the Commission at all, despite the Commission contacting them repeatedly to invite their participation. The Commission has received no response from X Corp or from Telegram. Other platforms, including Reddit and Twitch, have responded to the Commission in a limited fashion, typically by pointing the Commission to their publicly available policies without offering any detail as to how those policies are interpreted and enforced. Another platform, Gab, has been openly hostile in response to the Commission correspondence. I do not wish to give a minor platform undue prominence, but a man asserting that he's an attorney for Gab said in an email to the Commission that, quote, Gab is an American company run by American citizens and will publish what it likes when it likes. Gab's CEO posted this on X. I do not answer to Australian bureaucrats, and Gab does not answer to state-sponsored censors. The regulatory regime going forward in Australia needs to be robust enough to deal with companies at that extreme end of the spectrum. A question that will be considered is whether the E-Safety Commissioner or some other regulator should be given greater powers to regulate or compel the cooperation of social media platforms that are based offshore. The current position, where information relevant to the experiences of Australian end users of the online services provided by the platforms, remains beyond the compulsory information gathering powers even of this Royal Commission, is very unsatisfactory. The third area of inquiry in this hearing block is the public broadcasters, ABC and SBS. These media outlets occupy a particularly important, trusted position in the Australian media landscape. Their statutes, charters and policies commit them to high standards of accuracy, impartiality and balance, and they are charged with reflecting and indeed fostering a well-informed, diverse and multicultural Australian community. The Commission has received public submissions that are dissatisfied with and highly critical of the public broadcasters' coverage of the conflict in the Middle East. There are complaints that the ABC and the SBS have produced coverage that is inaccurate or unbalanced, both in their selection of stories and focus and in the reportage that they produce. The Commission has engaged with the Special Envoy to combat anti-Semitism in detail on this topic, and Ms Siegel will be called to speak to concerns of that kind. Witnesses from the public broadcasters themselves will also be called to speak to the approach taken by the ABC and the SBS to their reporting of the conflict. Evidence will be led about the governance, policies and processes the public media organisations have in place to manage allegations of anti-Semitism and the effectiveness of those measures. A particular focus of their evidence will be the way in which the ABC and the SBS deal with complaints about their coverage of the Middle East conflict. And this will involve asking if there is any demonstrable anti-Semitic bias in the reporting of journalists or in editorial policy in those media organisations. Relatedly, the Commission will hear from the Australian Communications and Media Authority. ACMA will give evidence concerning its regulatory functions. Again, it is proposed to explore with ACMA how it can and does respond to anti-Semitism through its role in complaint handling. The fourth topic in this hearing block is measures available to government to tackle anti-Semitism. This will focus on the Commonwealth Government, since under the Constitution, the Parliament of the Commonwealth has legislative power in respect of telecommunications and also in respect of Australian and foreign corporations. There are significant legal and geopolitical difficulties with any attempt to regulate the content of social media platforms that are run by corporations that do not have a legal presence in Australia. But as I will address shortly, there are various options available to government to try to address those difficulties. We will examine existing responses from platforms, and the government will seek to identify opportunities for better responses. That being said, it's important to observe that the Commission's work takes place within a broader regulatory context. There is a danger in purely reactive regulation, particularly in the online environment. Reactive regulation can produce cost, complexity, and inefficiency. It also often produces solutions that are not fit for purpose. The Commission will examine the effectiveness of cooperation between law enforcement, ACMA, the E-Safety Commissioner, and platforms in combating hateful speech online and sharing information relevant to their respective functions and responsibilities. Consideration of regulation of online services, both in this country and in others, is a current and continuing process. In Australia, the government is in the process of responding to and implementing some of the recommendations in the Rickard Review. That report was the statutory review of the Online Safety Act 2021 of the Commonwealth, prepared by Ms Delia Rickard and provided to the Commonwealth Government on 31 October 2024. This Commission is not a review of the Rickard Review, but it will be instructive to consider some of the central recommendations that have been merely noted in the Commonwealth response or supported by the Commonwealth, but apparently not yet implemented. 4 examples can be mentioned. First, changing the classification regime as it applies to online content. The film and literature-based classifications of Class 1 and Class 2 material are widely regarded as not fit for the purpose of regulating online content. 2, the recommendation that the Online Safety Act should include additional powers to require an end user to stop posting cyber abuse about an Australian adult in an end user notice, subject to a civil penalty. There is little point in a regulatory regime with no teeth. 3, that users experiencing adult cyber abuse or child cyberbullying should need to wait 24 and not 48 hours following a complaint to a service before the E-Safety Commissioner is able to issue a removal notice. And 4th, requiring a whole-of-government no wrong door approach to individuals seeking help to address online harm they have suffered. The Online Safety Act 2021 is itself a relatively new and largely untested piece of legislation, though there are strong grounds for considering that some aspects of it are not fit for purpose. The E-Safety Commissioner, Ms Julie Inman-Grant, will give evidence about some of what she regards as its deficiencies, including the lack of a definition of online hate, the lack of a statutory power to create an online hate code, the need for some changes to the adult cyber abuse scheme to improve enforcement mechanisms and to provide appropriate additional resources to deliver those changes, and deficiencies in the geographic scope of the E-Safety Commissioner's powers. We will also hear from a number of experts and government officials who will speak both to the challenges and potential solutions to anti-Semitism online, including the adequacy of resources provided to those charged with regulating online hate. The Commission will hear evidence from experts about the importance of an effective digital duty of care, one that provides appropriate protection for citizens and certainty and predictable standards for platforms. It will hear evidence about the importance of safety by design, the notion that in a rapidly paced regulatory environment, legal settings must ensure that community expectations are reflected from the ground up in the way platforms are designed and do business, so that general standards are raised and enforcement is effective. Commissioner, you'll also hear about the settings that are necessary to secure compliance from platforms that either flout Australian laws or regard regulatory engagement and legal compliance as a game of jurisdictional arbitrage. The United Kingdom's Online Safety Act 2023 and the European Union's Digital Services Act are also important comparators. Given the global reach of social media platforms and online services, there are real advantages in pursuing reforms that leverage the experience and approaches of like-minded nations. For governments and citizens, greater consistency in regulatory frameworks can drive better standards and greater accountability. For the social media platforms, greater consistency can reduce the burden of doing business across markets that might otherwise have very different regulatory frameworks. Where possible, consistency should be pursued. But Australia also has a history of leading the world in online regulation. And where platforms refuse to engage constructively, we must not shy away from exploring the tools that may be necessary to compel the outcomes that work for the Australian community. Commissioner, before I conclude, can I repeat again a warning about witness protection and confidential information? I've already mentioned witnesses who will be identified only by their pseudonym. I would also like to repeat that it's important to recognise the protections available to those engaging with the Royal Commission. The Royal Commission's Act 1902 of the Commonwealth, and indeed its state equivalents, contain statutory protections for witnesses. Witnesses who give evidence to the Commission should not be subjected to any form of vilification or abuse for doing so. In this hearing block, we will tender further evidence from Ms. Tali Blickblauer, the CEO of the Door Foundation, to show that this has occurred to a disturbing extent in the history of the Commission. It is also public knowledge that referral to the AFP has occurred and charges have been laid in respect of some of the abuse. During the course of the hearings, we will present examples of anti-Semitic bullying and vilification in the online environment. Observers will see, either in the hearing room or in the live stream, that redactions have been made to names and account handles in many instances. Consistent with its terms of reference, evidence of social media commentary is presented to you, Commissioner, in order to address the nature and prevalence of anti-Semitism and its drivers, and also to assist in making recommendations to counteract and prevent manifestations of anti-Semitism. The Commission is not a forum for resolving historical or continuing interpersonal disputes, and for this reason it's generally not necessary to disclose the details of individuals and their social media profiles.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Just before you call your first witness, on that last point, I note that in the course of leading evidence from members of the Jewish community who have been the subject of online abuse, it's proposed to show examples of that abuse on the live stream. I would like to emphasise that the purpose of this exercise is to give the public a better understanding of what life on social media has been like for many Australian Jews, particularly since the 7th of October 2023. As you've noted, Mr. Lancaster, many abusive posts are made anonymously, but others are made by identified individuals, sometimes in the course of an ongoing dispute with the subject of the post. In these cases, any material identifying the individual making the post will be redacted. It is not the Commission's purpose to shame or to sow further division in our society, much less to try and resolve the rights and wrongs of particular disputes. The intention is to demonstrate the essentially anti-Semitic nature of much of the online content that is directed to Australians who are known to be Jews. I should note that when we come to consider the public broadcasters, it is not part of the Commission's function to resolve individual complaints of anti-Semitic conduct in the workplace, or generally to investigate claims of biased reporting in particular instances. The Commission's focus is on the adequacy of the broadcaster's complaint handling mechanisms, including with respect to allegations of bias in the reporting of events in the Middle East relating to the State of Israel. Thank you, Mr. Lancaster.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'll now call the first witness of this hearing block, Mr. Arsen Ostrovsky.
Yes. Mr. Ostrovsky, do come forward. Will you take an oath or an affirmation?
Oh.
Yes. Thank you. I think we have the Tarnak there.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Ostrovsky. Do take a seat.
Mr. Ostrovsky, please state your full name.
Arsen Ostrovsky.
Your address is known to the Commission. You have produced a written statement dated 25th of June 2026.
That is correct.
Commissioner, that has the ID STAT.899.001.0253, and I tender the statement and each of its annexures. And Commissioner, you should have a list of the annexures and the applicable proposed exhibit numbers.
I have a list. I have the proposed exhibit numbers. I propose to admit the statement and all the annexures, and I don't propose to go through every number, Mr. Lancaster.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I take it that the represented parties have copies of the exhibit list? Yes.
Mr. Ostrovsky, you are the head of the Sydney office of the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council.
I am.
Could you describe how your family came to Australia?
So I was born in the Soviet Union in Odessa, and my family are what you would call refuseniks, meaning that we had wanted to emigrate from the former Soviet Union over years and decades of systematic, institutional and state-sponsored anti-Semitism, but were refused to. Were refused permission to do so. That anti-Semitism and that suppression of our Jewish and Zionist identity was both suppressed and punishable at the same time, and it manifested itself in a whole variety of ways, including inability and denial of our right to practice Judaism, to speak Hebrew, racial slurs, denial the ability to achieve certain ranks, hold certain jobs, forcible imprisonment. We were ostracized from society in many ways and made to feel like the other. And so my parents wanted something very simple. They wanted a life of freedom, of dignity, of opportunity. And finally, in '87, we were allowed to emigrate, and we came to Australia, which at the time opened us with open arms as a beacon of hope, of opportunity, of multiculturalism, of diversity.
You attended high school in Sydney?
I did.
And you attended university at Wollongong and at Deakin Uni?
I did.
Your experience of as a Jewish member of the school and universities, can you tell us your recollection of that in general terms?
So I went to a public high school. I went to university in Wollongong for about 6 years in the south of New South Wales. And I do not recall a single instance of anti-Semitism throughout that whole time. Both my school and my university were extraordinarily diverse, multicultural, with students and pupils and teachers from the entire cross spectrum of Australian society. When the Middle East was discussed, and it was from time to time, it was always in a seemingly respectful manner. For many of my friends, I was, and I suspect then, and maybe still now, but certainly then, probably the only or the first Jew they'd ever met. So in that whole time, I did not experience a single instance of anti-Semitism that I can recall until December 14.
Coming to the present day, what is currently your occupation?
I am currently the head of the Sydney office of the Australian Israel Jewish Affairs Council.
And that involves work as a human rights lawyer?
That involves work as a human rights lawyer, that involves work in advocacy, that involves speaking with the members of the Jewish community, with lawmakers, with policymakers, with journalists, on a whole range of levels, and but with one of the most primary purposes being in combating anti-Semitism.
And prior to your work with that council, the AIJAC, what did you do?
I'd lived in Israel for the last 13 or so years prior to relocating back to Australia at the end of November to take up the position at AJAC. And for the last, I think, 5 or so years, I was acting as the CEO of the International Legal Forum, which was an Israel-based but global network of lawyers dealing in issues of anti-Semitism, of human rights, of international law, and very much heavy focus on the events post-October 7th, especially working with hostage families and matters before the international arenas as well.
In the course of that previous work, I understand you've addressed a number of international bodies on the challenges of anti-Semitism. The UN Human Rights Council, the House of Lords, the US Congress, European Parliament.
I did.
Yes. You were in Israel at the time of the October 7 attacks?
I was, and the subsequent wars with Iran as well, yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
And the subsequent wars with Iran as well after October 7th
yes.
also.
And so you came to Sydney in November last year, 2025?
Correct.
Can I just clarify one matter?
Yes.
You explained that throughout your university career, you had not experienced anti-Semitism, and as I understand it, you didn't experience anti-Semitism in Australia until the Bondi attack. When did you complete your university?
I completed my undergraduate degree in business and law at the end of 2003.
I see. And when was it that you went to Israel?
I went first to New York, where I worked for a little bit as a lawyer and also in the field of international law and human rights in 2011. And then I lived in Israel from about 2012 until the end of 2025.
So in terms of your experience of anti-Semitism in Australia, up until 2003, when you went overseas, you simply hadn't had that experience.
Well, I didn't go overseas until about 2011.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So until then, no,
Yeah.
I don't recall of a single instance, certainly nothing that left a lasting impression.
Yes, thanks. Sorry, Mr. Lancaster.
Once you returned to Australia last year, it's right that you have been an active social media user.
Yes,
You have a large number of followers across multiple platforms.
I do.
In terms of follower numbers, your statement gives an idea of the approximate numbers. On X, it's about 395,000, 176,000 of which are active.
Correct.
And I think active defines some posting activity within the last 24 hours.
Yes, that's correct.
LinkedIn, approximately 10,000. Instagram, 6,250. Facebook, 2,100.
Correct.
Your Facebook account is a locked account,
It is.
and that's essentially for your personal use.
It is correct.
But the other social media platforms are used by you in the course of the advocacy exercises and the like that you described a little earlier in your evidence. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that is right.
You are an active participant in robust debate about issues affecting Jewish people online.
I am indeed.
You're no stranger to criticism of some of your posts.
That is correct.
Yeah. And I take it you don't complain about criticism of your posts that others might regard as wrong or provocative or controversial just because it is mere criticism. Your posts reach a large number of people.
That is correct, yes.
Your statement indicates that in the 12 months to 2026, your posts on X had over 121 million impressions.
That is correct. Yes.
Has your social media use changed over time?
In the last year or so, it has, due to a whole number of circumstances. Probably, I have spent less time online due to a number of factors, including our family relocation, and then after the events of December 14, in which, for obvious reasons, I had to spend time focusing on recovery and other matters as well. So I've spent probably less time active online, still active, but less so than I would have been over the preceding years.
Can I take you to December last year? You attended the Hanukkah celebration at Bondi on 14th of December. Is that right?
Yes.
I would ask you to avoid any discussion of what happened and its effects on you and your family, but I do wish to pick up what you refer to in your statement about what happened after you sustained an injury to your head. Now, I understand you took a photograph of your injury.
I did.
I'll display a copy of that photograph, which is stat.899.001.0266, which is one of the annexures to your statement. And this is a photograph that you took of yourself. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, you yourself didn't share that photograph online.
I did not.
You provided it to a friend of yours.
That is correct.
And what happened once you provided the photograph to your friend?
The friend had inquired as to how I was, and I replied with a photo. He had then asked if he could share it, and I had said yes. And he then shared it on X with a note about my condition.
And your statement indicates that the photograph was posted by your friend on X at about 8:33 p.m. on the 14th of December.
That is correct.
Now, can I call up a copy of your friend's tweet by which the photograph was posted on X? It's stat.899.001.0267. And thank you, and that can be taken down. And then you yourself posted a tweet early the following morning.
I did, yes.
Now, there was a considerable response, to say the least, to your tweet. Can you tell the Commissioner first how you learned about the responses to the tweets?
Well, my phone essentially started going off non-stop with notifications, people responding both to this tweet, to obviously there was quite extensive news coverage of the event as well. Other people were posting, many were tagging me. Some were, of course, messages of solidarity, but there was almost immediately an influx of hate, of abuse, of vilification, of AI manipulation, and it was surreal to be in the state that I was in hospital and yet to be receiving this kind of material at the same time.
So is it right that you first learned about the responses to the tweets while you were at hospital that night or the following day?
That is correct. I did.
you can I touch on another aspect of the social media response, which is the deep fake images and memes that you observed? And I will take you to some of the images in a minute, but can I ask you this first? Dealing first with the deep fake images, can you describe how you came to learn about the first of those images?
I came to learn about them as I was literally being prepped to go into surgery. And that is when I first found out. First, I found out online what was happening. These images started spreading like wildfire. Both the deepfake AI image, other images which had my bandage and gauze and scars photoshopped or removed. And then the media started contacting me for a response about them. And this was happening as I was literally being prepped to go into surgery.
And so when were you going into surgery? Is that the following day, or was that the night of the 14th?
The surgery, I believe, was Tuesday morning. First thing Tuesday morning.
There were images, videos and messages that suggested that you'd been involved in a false flag attack?
There were images, videos and material suggesting everything from that this was a false flag attack, that I was a crisis actor, a trauma tourist, that this wasn't real blood, that it was ketchup. There were images of me holding what looked like a Academy Award trophy, and many of these images, videos and material are still online today.
You took some steps to record some of these images, and you've included a small sample of them in a document that's attached to your statement.
Correct.
I take you to some of the images and call up stat.899.0001.0269. So this is the first of the images on in the selection that you've attached to your statement, showing you sitting on the ground, smiling or laughing with what looks like a makeup artist at a makeup artist table with cosmetics and red liquid applying it to your head.
Correct.
The second example you've given at page 2. You've shown the original picture of you in a hospital room with a bandage on your head injury, and then the altered version below it showing unharmed skin on your head.
Correct. And the top original image was taken just after surgery.
Yes. On page 3. Two examples of images posted online with the, as you've mentioned, the suggestion of tomato ketchup on your head and not blood.
Yes.
And then on page 5, please, you've referred in your evidence to the suggestion that you were acting. So the next page in the list, please, with the superimposed Oscar statuette. So, and then I can show you page 8 in that attachment. one of the examples of some of the conspiracy theories and abuse that you received, suggesting that you're a wounded or that you're a Mossad agent and not truly harmed by the incident. Now, you have indicated in your statement in paragraph 30 the platforms on which some or many of these images appeared. Could you just describe the platforms that you became aware of as having published this material?
Basically every platform, on X, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Telegram, initially on Facebook and Instagram as well. Not all of these platforms I'm actually active on, but one way or another they came to my attention, either people resharing the material, either people taking material from one platform and posting it on another. Some friends wanted to alert me to them as well, but essentially every platform.
You mentioned that you were contacted by the media as well in the aftermath. Can you
Yes.
describe what happened with those inquiries?
Media both here from Australia and overseas. That included from here it was from SMH, ABC, others, and from the US and UK, BBC, Reuters, AFP. They saw the images. They said they were doing a fact check in order to debunk specifically that AI manipulated image of that was shown of me on the grassy knoll with paint being applied, and they had asked if I was willing to comment.
And I understand there was a BBC analysis of the deepfake images.
What, sorry?
A BBC
Correct.
analysis.
BBC as well. Yes.
Yeah. And you've attached to your statement a copy of a BBC newspaper article. Can I just call that up, please? It's stat.899.0001.0256. Annexure 11. And that shows I'll just look at the image if you could focus on the image, please. That shows some of the indicators of the artificial generation of the image showing paint or makeup being applied to your face, including deformation or unusual or scrambled shapes and designs in various places throughout the document. Thanks, that can be taken down. Can I ask you more generally, is it right that you had received online abuse before December 2025?
I certainly did as well, yes.
Did you observe that changing after December 2025 in terms of the extent or intensity of the online abuse that you have received?
Absolutely. It became, after December, became impossible for me to keep up. It essentially became a relentless tsunami of Jew hatred online.
Now, can I call up, and in terms of do you still post material online?
I do indeed, on various issues from Jewish advocacy to anti-Semitism to affairs in the Middle East, and I certainly have with respect to the Commission as it's progressed. I posted even this morning the fact that the importance of speaking today and it automatically opened another deluge of abuse and hate, much of which we've just discussed, again, on repeat, on loop, again and again.
Yeah. Can I call up some of the material you've attached to your statement as examples of the online abuse that you've been subjected to? It's stat.8.9.001.0259, which is an extra 14 to your statement. And go first to page 0003. This is one of the examples with a comment referring, I think you gave some evidence about this a little earlier, referring to you as a trauma tourist, trying to distract from war crimes. Then the next page, please, the annexure. Yes. So at page 5, can we move forward, please? And the next page. Some of the abuse includes the use of a goblin trope. We'll move to page 11. Is another example of this anti-Semitic trope. And then page 13, please. Could we leave page 11 for a moment? I'm sorry. Go back to page 11. Again, so this was an example of the abuse you'd received as a false flag actor under the title Demonic Goblin. And then if you go to page 14, please. This particular user, I won't read it out, but in the top 3.5 lines of the page. Now, you indicated earlier that the deepfake images and abuse after 14 December 2025 was essentially on a long list of social media platforms. In your experience, has there been better and worse examples of the way social media deals with anti-Semitic content in your own personal experience?
Yes, there has. I mean, immediately after the deepfake images and videos came out, I recall reporting it to both to Twitter and I believe YouTube at the time as well. I have not heard back from either. The one difference in my case was Meta. When I saw one of the images come out on Instagram, I had relayed that to Mr. Dana Cutler at Meta, who is the head of the policy for Israel and the Jewish diaspora, notified her. She informed me that it would be looked at immediately, and it was indeed removed, both from Instagram and I understand Facebook as well, and I've not seen it since on that particular platform.
Meta had an officer with particular responsibility in relation to anti-Semitic content?
I'm not sure specifically just anti-Semitic
Right.
content, but I believe her portfolio was focusing on Israel, on issues related to Jewish diaspora in Israel, which did include anti-Semitism. And I had come to know her over a number of years when I was working in Israel in a professional sense.
I see.
You've observed that a significant amount of online anti-Semitic hate that you've received is framed as anti-Zionism. Is that right?
That is correct.
And what have you observed about that type of content?
Essentially, everything that is no longer fit to say about Jews is being said against Zionists. It is the same hatred, the same viciousness, but expressed in a more modern language with a veneer of respectability, political discourse of which neither is acceptable. What I've seen is a lot of code words. For example, instead of Jew, it's Zio or Zionist. Claiming that somehow because I am a Zionist that I am less deserving of the same rights and the same protections as everyone else, and that therefore what happens to me by virtue of being a Zionist is therefore is something that is deserved. Effectively, what it feels like is that it puts, quite frankly, a target on my back.
You have given evidence in your statement that you personally draw a distinction between reasonable criticism of the Israeli government on the one hand and criticism that's premised on the illegitimacy of the Jewish state on the other hand. Is that right?
I have, yes.
Yeah. Is it, and you express the opinion that that when Israel is singled out for relentless and vicious vilification, or when those who support Israel or identified as Zionists are treated as morally disqualified from public life, what follows is exclusion, harassment and violence towards Jewish people.
That is correct. I am someone who openly believes in engaging in robust debate, but I also believe that there are limits to such debate, and one can criticize Australian foreign policy, the US foreign policy, Italian foreign policy, but yet we don't see the same people denying Australia or America or Italy or any other nation state, for that matter, the right to live in freedom and peace. But what does feel like is happening, that there are those who may identify as anti-Zionists but have a singular obsession with Israel, whose political character depends on delegitimizing the one state, and who, instead of using old tropes that would have otherwise been used against Jews, are now being used against Zionists. In some ways, it doesn't matter how they define themselves, but it is still the same hatred and the same discrimination.
You've mentioned the complaint you made to Meta and the response you received from Meta about the posting of the deepfake images and videos. You've also made a complaint to X more recently. Is that right?
I did, in the course of preparing for this commission as well, because again, a lot of these fake images and conspiracy theories, they keep repeating across a number of platforms, including X and including YouTube. And yes, I did report to both of those two platforms, X and YouTube.
Your statement indicates that on the 7th of June this year, while you were preparing your statement, you made a further report to X about material that was still available to be viewed online.
Correct.
And you record that X confirmed it received the report and classified it as abusive behaviour.
Well, I classified
You
it as
classified.
abusive behaviour when I reported that.
That's right.
The only thing that X did was just confirm that it received the report.
Right. So as of today, have you heard anything?
I have not.
You also record in your statement that you made a recent report on the 8th of June to YouTube in respect of a YouTube video that accused you of being a crisis actor and an intelligence asset.
Correct, I didn't.
What's occurred with that complaint?
Exactly the same as with X. I received a confirmation that my report was received, but I have not heard it back since. When I've checked, including just the other day, it had said it is still live, meaning that it is still presumably being reviewed, but I've not heard back anything from them beyond the fact that it was received.
Can I turn now to some material that you've reported to police? You've given evidence in your statement that in December 2025, an Islamic preacher publicly questioned the authenticity of your injuries. Is that right?
That is correct.
These words were captured in a video that was posted on X,
Correct.
and you reported that video to the New South Wales Police.
I didn't.
Can you tell us about the police response to that report?
The police had said that they would investigate the matter further. I was informed that there would be further police protection provided in the sense of vehicles, police vehicles, both marked and unmarked, driving past our home to monitor the situation. I'm not aware of anything further that had been done.
Can you describe for the Commissioner the effect of online anti-Semitism on you personally?
I try my best to block it out. I do. But it's impossible. And the cumulative nature of it is overwhelming. It is dehumanizing. I feel that it threatens not only my life, my physical safety, but my family's. It tries to completely erase my experience and my trauma. It certainly did at a time right after December 14 when you're trying to heal, when your family, when your children see this. The abuse is relentless. It is vicious. It has become in many ways a cesspool of Jew hatred that I cannot keep up with. But the effect does take considerable emotional toll. To be told that you do not have the same rights, to be told that you are not a victim, to be told that you deserve this in some way. It not only humanizes you, not only tries to erase what happened to you, but what it does do is effectively incites only further violence. And I feel like there are things that would be said in public and would not be acceptable, yet somehow are allowed to persist online.
You've given some evidence in your statement about something your daughter said to you at the Royal Easter Show this year. Can you recount that?
We got to the Easter show and my daughter is all of 9 years old, looks around and says, "Abba, Daddy, there's no security here. How come is it just for us? Is it because we're Jews?" This is the same girl who, having grown up in Israel, including the wars, including endless trips to the bomb shelter, after December said that she feels safer in Israel. This is the same daughter who, when we go to school, has to go through not one or two, but at least 3 layers of security. And who says to me, "Daddy, our victory is that you survived. Commissioner, do you know when we would say that? After the Holocaust. When our grandparents would say that their victory is that we survived. And I have now a 9-year-old girl. My other daughter is 5. They were both there.
They
Internalized
were both there.
at Bondi.
Mm.
Yes, they were. They were both there. They are now internalizing this. Children are incredibly perceptive. They are asking why they are receiving or the subject of all this special treatment when other boys and girls are not. And we are not so different to many other Jewish families across Australia who have to grapple with these questions with our children day by day by day.
Mr. Ostrovsky, did your non-Jewish friends offer support after Bondi?
Yes, very much so. Many of them had reached out, many including those with whom I hadn't been in touch with. My face became quite, how can I put this, prominent, and I did a number of media interviews at the time. So many friends whom I hadn't spoken to reached out to first express their support and many to ask what they could do. So that was certainly very, very touching.
And can I ask you finally, Mr. Ostrovsky, you've expressed some views in your statement about what occurs when anti-Semitism is allowed to go unchecked online. Could you describe your opinion about that?
When hatred, whether it is in person or online, is allowed to go unchecked, when manipulated images and videos and material is allowed to explode almost uncontrollably, it creates not only a dehumanizing effect, it creates not only an atmosphere of harassment and great concern as to both our physical well-being, our personal and our families, but it very much, when left unchecked, does lead to violence. And if it's something that is said in real life on the street that would not be acceptable, we cannot allow it to be acceptable just because it is said online.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't have any further questions.
Yes. Any questions?
No, Commissioner.
Sharp?
No, Commissioner.
Mr. Bender? Thank you very much, Mr. Ostrovsky. You are excused.
Thank you.
This might be a convenient time,
Yes,
Mr. Lancaster. The Commission will adjourn for morning tea.
Commissioner, our next witness has been given a pseudonym of ACE. Call her to give that.
Yes.
Now, there is a non-publication direction over your name. You've been given the pseudonym of ACE, you understand?
Do.
And you've given a statement to the Commission. It's dated the 24th April 2026, is that correct?
That's correct.
Commissioner, that statement has the number STAT.ACE 899.0051.0014.
Yes, well, that statement will be received as an exhibit. Thank you.
Excellent. And if I could also please tender the exhibits to that statement, which are numbered from 3-022 to 3-030.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shim. I gave up trying to do the number himself.
I'm sure I'll give up for too long as well, Commissioner. Now, I don't want to get into any personal details that might identify you, but could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm 47 years old. I'm born and bred in Sydney. I've been in education most of my life. And I'm married and I have two daughters, school age.
And I understand that you have some experience in delivering multicultural education programs. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I was the education manager at a organisation called Courage to Care, and we went into schools to talk to students about being upstanders, and we ran programs that were about 2 hours long. We marketed ourselves as being teaching people how to what lessons had been learnt from the Holocaust, and we brought Holocaust survivors to talk to students, as weird as it sounds, as the positives of their story in that story. So yeah.
And you've referred a couple times to the concept of an upstander. Could you explain a little bit what it means?
So an upstander is a person who stands up for the person who is being targeted. So that could either just be supporting that person, or by standing up to a perpetrator or the person who's doing the harm. But it's really about just standing up and checking in with the target or victim to see that they're okay and what support they would need.
And it's correct, isn't it, that you're also a qualified primary school teacher and educator?
Yep, correct.
And how long?
In schools for about 20 years.
And you mentioned before that you had two daughters. How old are your daughters?
My daughters are 14 and 11.
Okay. Now, in your statement, you've given some evidence about your daughter's experience of anti-Semitism at the school that she attends. Could you tell us a little bit about how that came to your attention?
Yeah, sure. So my daughter was in year 7 at the time, so this was in 2024. And I was at the first incident told me was in the first 2 weeks of her being in school, that someone had asked her whether her Magen David was the devil's symbol. And when she replied no to this particular student, he turned around, did a cross symbol at her and said, back away, get away, devil. I reported that to the school. That was being investigated. Another incident happened for her.
And is it correct that your local Member of Parliament took some action in relation to the incidents that your daughter was experiencing?
Yeah, so I've just referenced 2 of the incidents. She had many more throughout the year, and partway through the year, a group of parents from the area, one parent in particular had written to the federal MP and said, we're having some issues, the school not really responding very well, and he wanted to come and meet with the parents, and so we put together a small group of parents and we all told our stories of what our children had been experiencing. From that, majority of the parents, not all of them, but the majority of the parents were from one particular school. So then he wrote to that school explaining and what our experiences were.
And can you describe the school's response to that?
The school took a long time to respond, and eventually responded by saying that I think they said something along the lines of that they were aware of the situation and had all been dealt with, and there weren't any ongoing issues.
And I think in your statement, you refer to an incident where another student the family. Could you speak a little bit about that incident?
Yep, so that was the second incident. So the first incident had happened. I had written to the school. They were investigating it. The first email back from the school was actually really positive. They were like, we do not stand for this. This absolutely is anti-Semitism, and we'll look into it. Whilst that was being looked into, so it was in 2 or 3 days, within 2 or 3 days, another student had walked up to my daughter and said, I wish Hitler had gassed your family so we wouldn't have had to meet you. Yeah.
Now I want to ask you some questions about a TikTok account that was created in June 2024. Could you tell the Commissioner a little bit about the TikTok account?
Sure. So it was a TikTok account that was created. It was with Year 7 on it, so it was targeted specifically to that. The first video on it was a reference to my eldest daughter. It said my eldest daughter has a pseudonym ACG. So ACG's sister going for a swim. My other daughter at the time was wheelchair bound and quite unwell, and it was a water swimming around. Not swimming around, but moving around. And then there was a second video which had a whole variety of different people from my eldest daughter's school, one of which was a picture of my eldest daughter when she was in Year 4, and with the letters, I'm going to read this out, but it basically spelt out gas inhaler, so it was G at symbol S and then space INH, then at symbol L3 and R under her image. Yeah, so that was the TikTok account.
And do you have any understanding of why the at symbols or the letter 3 were used, or any insight into those characters?
The social media idea of not spelling out particular words because they'll get banned or whatever. So that, yeah, but it was clear what they were trying to say.
And could you describe how your daughter responded to this incident?
She was devastated. There was a lot of, so the whole year knew about it. This was before social media ban, so 2024. Whole year knew about it. There's a lot of people trying to. She felt a little bit supported in that sense. And there were quite a few people who were private messaging the account and saying, you need to take it down. ACG hasn't done anything. I'm not sure why this is going on. And then got quite personal. The chat, got personal and said they hate fats like ACG and she's a Jew and etc. And it just got really nasty. She was just at a loss, really didn't know what was going on.
With response to this incident? So
I was sent the videos on the Sunday night, and I wrote to the head of her year immediately and said, this is what's happening, things are escalating a lot, and we really need to get support for my daughter, and we need to get on top of what is going on. Like, this is now beyond just phrases being said. We need to really do something here. And he responded by saying, do you know who's behind the account? I'm on leave tomorrow, which was the Monday. I'll look into it on the Tuesday. Being ex-principal, I also mentioned that I know it's hard because it's social media and it's outside of school, but something needs to be done. As soon as I got that response, I wrote back. At school, speaking to my daughter today, and I'm going to be taking this to the police.
And did you take steps to report the matter to police?
I did. I called the police that day, our local police station, and they asked me to come in and set me an appointment time. When I got there, that police officer wasn't there. A different one was there who seemed quite angry that we were there, and was like, we told them that you couldn't come in, that there was no point in coming in. They were quite angry at us, and said, you're just going to need to wait. There's more important things going on. And I said, that's fine. We're happy to wait. I think we waited about 5 minutes, to be fair. And the police finished up with what he'd done and come in. And when we showed him what we were dealing with, he was appalled and said, this is horrendous. I'm so sorry you're going through this, and totally flipped his demeanour and became really helpful with everything.
And what steps did the police take with respect to the TikTok account?
So they said that they were going to get in touch with TikTok and ask it to be taken down and see what information they could get from TikTok. They also explained that in the past this hadn't been very successful, but that's what they'll try and do. And they'll investigate as best they can. They asked my daughter if she thought, which she didn't, she thought it was some boys in the school, but she wasn't sure who or why. And that was, we left with that.
And as a result of their inquiries, were the police able to identify who was behind the accounts?
So the police were able to come up with 2 IP addresses of 2 girls in my daughter's year, one of which was a really good friend, or my daughter, which we had kind of suspected because we hadn't told many people what was going on with our other daughter. So we thought it had to be someone that she confided in. When she heard that it was that particular person, she was devastated. They sat together in every single class they were in, and she's gone to that person's house and spoken to her, and she admitted it and, apologised, and even apologised to my daughter at some stage, and said that she had set up the account, gave the account and the password to the other person. And when she'd seen what was happening, she asked the other person to close the person whose IP address they had never admitted to doing it. And in fact, when the police went and spoke to her and her family, they talked about the bullying and whatever else that was going on for their daughter, as to why she was doing it, and just took no responsibility for it.
And I understand that you also took... Can you tell me a little bit about how you went about doing that?
So I went on the website. I used to work in a lot of e-safety stuff, e-safety education, so I was aware of what steps to take as a reporter. We'd gone through. The e-safety commissioner wrote back and said to us that because the account had already been taken down, there's nothing else they could do. And whilst the account had been taken down, everyone with social media has taken screenshots of it, have saved videos, so it was still...
I might just go to the Safety Commissioner complaint, if that's okay, and ask the operator to call up stat8.999.0051.0014_0010. Is this a copy of the complaint that you've provided with your son?
Yeah.
6th of June 2024, 10:29 p.m. submitted. Is that consistent with your recollection of when it was submitted?
Yeah.
And if we could go over the page that _0011. You'll see at the top of the page there a school to help stop the cyberbullying. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then beneath that is set out the details of what is happening.
Correct.
And then under where it's happening, you've given the provider name TikTok. Do you see that?
Mhm.
And you said you had reported it to the provider, is that right?
An ability on TikTok to report. I can't actually remember. I think my husband may have done that because I'm not on TikTok. But yeah, I think that's how we reported that.
Okay. And when did you report date is the 24th of June 2024? Do you see that?
Yes.
So was it reported fairly soon after you had identified it?
Yes, that's when she had seen it and was very upset about it all, and that's when we reported.
Okay. And if I just go over the next page, which I think should be 0012. Heading, is the material still on from the previous page? The answer is no. Is it the case that TikTok took the material down?
Yes, I believe they did. Well, I don't know if they did or if the down at some point.
Now, if I go to the eSafety Commissioner's or the Office of the eSafety Commissioner's response and ask the operator to call up stat851.0014_0015, which is an extra ACE3 to your statement. Say from the eSafety Commissioner.
Yeah.
And if you look at the first and second paragraphs, it and expresses some sympathy, and then in the second paragraph, eSafety's primary role is to effect the rapid removal of serious cyberbullying material from social media services. From what you've told us, the account of concern has already been removed from TikTok. And then there's some references to providing instructions for how to report underage users to TikTok. See that?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some do you see that? And then if I could go to the next page, there's some further support and a reference to an e-safety toolkit for schools.
Mm-hmm.
And to the next page. So some references to curriculum-aligned resources. Do you have any views about this response from the Safety Commissioner?
View is there's really not a lot that they can do, especially if the account's been taken down. My emotional view is that these things should, I'm sure we weren't the first people to report it. And so whilst it was taken down by a student or whoever created it, it wasn't actually taken down by anyone from an authority perspective. So it could be reactivated. Yeah, that is interesting. What I did do with this information is that I sent it to the school because they didn't have it. And that was sent to parents because parents were asking questions. But again, that's a different story as to how the school responded to that.
And when you say you sent it to school, are you making reference to the curriculum-aligned resources that are displayed on the screen?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And I understand that in June 2024, an email was sent to parents in your school's grade addressing incident. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, because I had been, as an educator, I tend to try to follow a route of educating people, and I feel that that's the best way to respond to incidents like this. And so there was, because my daughter wasn't the only person, she was the primary person targeted on this account. She wasn't the only one targeted. So there was discussion on the parents' WhatsApp group about what had happened, and parents were getting very upset as to didn't know how to speak to their children about what had happened. Into the head of the year saying there's a lot of discussion on the WhatsApp group, just letting you know, perhaps the school should address it. And the response I got back was, well, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to know about what's on the WhatsApp group? Very hands-off kind of thing. And I said, well, from my experience, these resources are probably really good to share with the parents, that they can talk to their students. And so that's what they did. They sent an email. Address the situation.
And was there also a reference to arranging a police liaison officer to attend the school?
That's correct, yeah.
And did that occur?
It did occur on a day that a lot of the students were out at a sports carnival, including my daughter, who was out at that sports carnival. But yes, they did do it, but I have no idea what was said or done from that perspective.
And I understand that in around July 2024, your daughter approached the deputy principal of the school again. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So another incident had happened for her.
And could you tell us a little bit about that incident?
So that incident, I'm just trying to remember which incident that was.
If I could direct you to 18, paragraph 18 of your statement.
18? Okay, so there'd been quite a few different incidences. The child the second person who had created a TikTok account started making my daughter's life pretty unbearable at school. So she was being threatened physically, and this particular child would had a lot of power in the school and would threaten her, saying other students would hurt her if she did whatever she did. And various other students would just make comments to my daughter as she was passing by, or just unpleasant situation. The child who was accused ACG had been told to go to this particular head of year and speak about what was going on. So, they were saying to my daughter was saying, I just don't understand why this is all happening still. Why haven't you done anything about it? And the deputy said to her, well, what do you think we haven't done? To which she replied, well, there hasn't been any education about what's going on. At which point the deputy said, actually, you're right, we haven't.
I might just indicate, in case it wasn't abundantly clear, that the name that was just mentioned is the subdomain on publication direction. But I might also just ask you about the incidents that you address at paragraph 19 of your statement. So there were some additional anti-Semitic incidents that your daughter experienced at school. Could you just tell us a little bit about those incidents?
Yeah. So in or around September or October, so still term 3, some students, as my daughter walked past, gestured the Hitler salute towards her. She reported this to the relieving principal at the time. The relieving principal called me with a little bit of like a smirk, explaining that, your daughter has said this, but when we investigated it, I like to use that term a lot, investigate. When we investigate it, the students had actually just done a soldier's salute. And I said, okay, I'll speak to my daughter when she gets home and find out what's happened. And when I spoke to my daughter, she said she had asked the students what so yes, they said it was a soldier's salute. And when she asked them to show her what a soldier's salute looked like, they did Nazi salute. So that was the first one, or that was one of them, which my daughter was very upset about. And I could hear that the school was getting frustrated with the amount of reports that were being made. Then in November, a student grabbed my daughter's book and drew a swastika at the top. And she was around a group of Jewish students at the time, so it was her and targeting students around her. And then in December was the last day of school. She walked into her classroom where she sits, and on the desk was a swastika engraved into the desk. And she told the teacher who she had at the time and said, you know, she's very upset by it and something needs to be done, to which the teacher said, when she asked she could go see the wellbeing teacher, which is what she'd been told she was allowed to, the teacher refused to let her out of the classroom, and things escalated quite badly to the point that my husband and I actually came into the school. She then got in trouble for using her phone because she wasn't allowed to use her phone, but she was exacerbated and didn't know what to do. And we went to the school to try and find out what had happened. We were assured that the desk would be taken out and destroyed, but it hadn't happened.
Patient in an ABC program. Could you tell us about that experience?
Yep. So we were approached by a reporter from the 7:30 to talk about my daughter's experiences, which my daughter was very happy to do. It wasn't about naming and shaming the school, as I haven't mentioned school here either. It's not what it's about. It was, well, my daughter felt it was important, and we felt it was important to just get the word out as to what was happening for students and why it was important for education on anti-Semitism and to understand what it is and the effect that it's having on students. In particular, at the time, there was a lot of writing off saying it was, you know, it was about Israel in what my daughter was experiencing. It was very classic anti-Semitism. So.
And you said that you were approached by the reporter. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
What was the experience of participating in the program, like as an interviewee?
So we were both interviewed. It was very strange, but it was very therapeutic, I think, getting out there. Because we didn't name and shame the school, I also wanted to let the school know that it was happening. And that we weren't naming and shaming the school, that they had asked for her to be in uniform, and we said it wasn't about naming and shaming the school. And so I had spoken to the press people for the Department of Education and explained what was going on, and they were able to see it beforehand as part of the protocols. So that was fine. And then finally, my daughter sat down with the deputy principal at that stage, a different person, and an action plan, a safety plan was put in place for her because they were worried about retribution she might have for being on TV about the situation. Bear in mind, no safety plan had been put in place before.
And you just mentioned the safety plan. Could you tell us a little about how your daughter's experience?
So safety plan was put in place where it was now officially that I had to sign off on it, she had to sign off on it, and the deputy signed off on it. So it was an official paperwork, which was saying that if she, anyone mentioned anything that she felt was threatening, that she could report it, that she was able to access the wellbeing area and see a school counsellor if she needed to, and if they needed, if she felt and have anything, more things put in place needed.
Now, I just want to turn to a different topic. We discussed earlier your previous experience as a teacher. And I understand that in your previous role, you were involved in establishing a partnership between the school that you worked at and a program called Together for Humanity. Is that right?
That's correct.
Could you tell us a little bit about that program?
Sure. So at a previous school I worked at, I was a Year 6 teacher. It was a Jewish day school, and I didn't attend a Jewish day school, even though I grew up in Sydney, and I wanted to have our students experience more than was in there. And so I set up a program that was an interfaith program. We worked with an Islamic school, and we met 4 times a year, so once a term, to meet and basically break down barriers as you can at 11 or 12 years old. So yes, we're very different, but we're also actually really the same. So we did, as I said, we did a interaction, playing a bit of sport together. We did a lot of, get to know you activities. What, do you have pets? Do you not have pets? Why not? All those kinds of things. What sports do you play? What do you do on the weekend? All of that. Then we would go to one of the schools, either to the Jewish day school or to the Islam school. Each year it kind of changed which order, and learnt about the traditions in the religion. And then the term 3 one was about giving back to the community. So we would go to OBK, which is our big kitchen in Bondi, and make some traditional food from Jewish culture and traditional food from the Muslim culture, and then donate that to OBK. So it was about coming together. And then term 4, we'd go to whichever school we hadn't been to.
These programs.
The children loved it. They really found it incredible. The first time we went to OBK, it was really interesting. We had parents from both schools come and accompany us as well. And what I think our Jewish community found pretty fascinating was that a lot of the funding had actually come from the Muslim community for OBK, which is considered a Jewish kitchen. And a lot of parents that were there were actually the people that funded it. So that was pretty amazing. But what was apparent for me was just that the kids were apprehensive more because of what they'd been told more from their parents. In common, and that's what they did.
And in your evidence, you also mentioned your work with Courage to Care. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Sure. So Courage to Care, when I was with them, we would go into schools. We would talk to students from year 5 to year 12. I was looking after New South Wales, ACT, and Queensland. And so we would go into schools, generally year 9 and 10, who had us, but various other schools doing various other programs would have us in, depending on what topic they were talking about, if it was anti-bullying, or if it was looking at historical concerns, or in year 5 and 6 looking at what makes up Australia and the history. We developed a program specifically for one school in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, which was looking at how to be an upstander in the role of transitioning from year 6 into year 7. And so that was a specific bespoke program for them. And we had, as I mentioned before, we had Holocaust survivors who would come and tell their story, or be interviewed based on what the program was about.
And I understand you've also been involved in running learning programs for teachers as well. Mm-hmm. Could you speak about those?
Yeah, sure. So we developed, actually in partnership Together for Humanity, we developed a professional learning called Recognising and Responding. And actually initially for teachers who were in Jewish day schools who were not Jewish, and how to speak in a safe environment about what was going on. Whereas we had felt that within Jewish day schools after October 7th, there was kind of a bit of a split within the teachers, where those who were Jewish knew culturally what was going on and how to respond, and those that weren't Jewish didn't really know how to open the conversation. So it was about how can you ask questions that you want to know without offending anyone. And so that was what the program was about. At the beginning of 2026, we're in 2026 now, yeah, beginning 2026, through various connections, the Department of Education heard about the professional learning that we're doing and asked us to roll it out to the public school. In January, we did that session online we did over 2 days. It's only an hour program. So we ran it on 2 different days for principals and ARCOs, so the anti-racism contact officers in primary schools and high schools. So I think we delivered it to over 100 different schools.
And have there been any changes in the uptake of that program over time, or?
It certainly increased the uptake, that's for sure. From those 100 people that we delivered it to in January, we've had about 8 schools ask us to come and deliver it to their entire staff. So, okay. Yeah.
You've been involved in the establishment of a survey designed for Jewish youth. Could you speak to that survey and what it's found?
Yeah, sure. So, in my role at Courage to Care, we had applied for a grant from Walper Foundation, where they were looking for programs for how Jewish students can respond to anti-Semitism. So, and then we obviously needed to do some research as to what students were feeling, because I'm a little bit older than students at the moment. I know what I experienced in public schools, but I don't know what they were experiencing. So this was in 2025, and so I developed a completely anonymous survey and sent it out to various Jewish groups, around, and through my contacts of volunteers that worked with Courage to Care, to understand students' experiences of people from 16 to 25, and what they're experiencing.
And what did you find at high level with the results?
Look, we didn't get a huge amount of people responding, which I was quite. But from the results, so I think we got 148 student responses, of which 49 had reported that they had experienced anti-Semitic incidents. I thought that from what was there, what I gleaned from it was quite a few things. One was really interesting, that a lot of people dealt with anti-Semitism. They chose not to report it because nothing was done, or they felt nothing was done about it, and so what was the point in reporting it? I thought it was interesting as well that a lot of the respondents, I don't remember the numbers, I'm sorry, but the respondents had said that they don't do anything because they don't want to make a big deal, and I think that that's generally what our Jewish community does feel. And from those that had reported it, one of the questions was, did they know how to respond? Did they feel like they were equipped with ways to respond? And the majority of them said that they didn't know how to respond. So that was what our program is working on.
Thank you. Commissioner, I don't have any further questions. Ms. Witness.
I've just got a couple. I may have misheard you, but did you say that when your daughter was experiencing bullying in 2024, someone suggested to you it had been...
It was actually a response from the school.
From the school?
Yeah.
And it was in 2024 that a student took your daughter's exercise book and drew a swastika on it.
Correct.
How old was your daughter in 2024?
12.
Yes. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Kaplan?
No, thank you, Commissioner.
Ms. Sharp? Mr. Bender? Is something arising? Yes.
Nothing.
Oh, nothing arising. Sorry. You are excused. Thank you very much for your evidence.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, our next witness is no longer available to give evidence at the appointed time, so if the Commission would be minded to adjourn.
Well, if we haven't got a witness, I am minded to. What is convenient? Should we just take an hour's break from now, or is it better to simply adjourn till 2?
I think it would be better to adjourn to 2.
Well, that's exactly what we'll do.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I call Mr. Steven Lowy.
Yes. Do you take a seat, Mr. Lowy?
Mr. Lowy, what's your full name?
Stephen Lowy.
Your address is known to the Commission, and you have prepared a statement and provided it to the Commission. That statement's dated 25 June 2026. Are the contents of the statement true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, that's correct.
Commissioner, I attend Mr. Lowy's statement and the annexures. There are 2 annexures. One is a confidential annexure, SL1, and there is a non-confidential annexure, SL2. I think those
Yes.
3 different
All
documents.
those exhibits we received and marked in accordance with the list.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Lowy, you've been active in public and commercial life in Australia and served in board leadership roles since the late 1980s.
Yes, that's correct.
Those roles have spanned various sporting, cultural, commercial and community institutions.
Yes.
You identify a number in your statement, but it includes service as the co-CEO of Westfield Corporation.
Yes, that's correct.
And for a time you were the chair of the Football Federation Australia.
Yes, that's correct.
You're deputy chairman of the Lowy Institute, an independent Australian think tank.
Yes, that's correct.
Your father, Sir Frank Lowy, AC, is a Holocaust survivor who arrived in Australia in 1952. In your statement, you described the opportunities that Australia provided to him and his family, including you. Could you expand on that?
Sure. My father arrived here actually on Australia Day, 1952, after a long journey surviving the Holocaust. Australia gave his actually mother and siblings had made it to Australia prior to that. And Australia gave him enormous opportunity and freedom that he wasn't afforded as a young man. He only had 3 years of formal education, given most of his life was through either oppression or the Holocaust itself. And in fact, I'm my generation would be the first generation in my family that has been afforded, living in a democracy and freedom, and the opportunities that come with that. And my father met my mother very young, and they built a family and built the family in Australia. And I think my father's story is very well known to the Commission and to the Australian public. Our parents, I guess, taught us that with privilege comes great responsibility, and my wife Judy and I have tried to teach our children the same. We have a responsibility to give back to the country in ways not just economic, but also in communal, philanthropic ways, and that's how we've lived our lives. And I think we thank enormously Australia for welcoming my father, and of course many other immigrants, both Jewish and non-Jewish, that have contributed so much to our country since that time.
You describe in your statement the way that anti-Semitism has, in words, shadowed your family, not as an abstract threat, but as a lived reality. The first event you described occurred in December 1982, when you were about 20 years old. Can you describe what happened then?
Yes, well, even the environment leading to that is my father being a Holocaust survivor. My grandfather actually perished at the hands of Nazis. And basically all of my grandmother's family suffer the same fate. So that's the environment we grew up in. In December of 1982, I was actually still a university student, but I was studying in my father's office. The Westfield headquarters were at 100 William Street in the city, and the Israeli consulate was there in the same building at the time. And there was actually two bombings on that day. There was the first bombing at the Israeli consulate around lunchtime. It's not in my witness statement, but I was in the building at the time. Of course, a very horrific event. Thank God nobody actually died, only because of the fault of the terrorists. And then later that day, there was a second bombing at the Hakoah Club in Bondi. Of course, one was the target was the Israeli consulate. The second target was a Jewish community building, nothing to do with Israel other than being a Jewish centre for culture and sport and social activity. And my father was actually due to be at a meeting that day in the afternoon, or actually in the evening, and the police recommended him not to go there. And then there was a second bombing there that day, and actually I personally took a phone call at our house threatening the lives of our family.
On that day?
Excuse me, on that day.
On that day.
Yes, in the afternoon of that day.
And at that time, the Hakoah Club performed what sort of a function in the Jewish community?
It was the, I would say, the social hub of the Jewish community. It's actually, Hakoah is an organisation that started in 1938 from Austrian and European refugees. They brought sport and culture, and they created a club. And actually the first club building was in, first formal one was in Hall Street in Bondi. It opened in 1975. Prior to that, there was a rented facility in Roscoe Street in Bondi. The main building was in Hall Street. And it became actually in the early 2000s, it had over 11,000 members. And I would also bring to the attention of the Commission that around 25% of those members were also non-Jewish. So whilst it was a club based on Jewish ethos, it was really a beacon of social cohesion. It was very important to the Jewish community, and today I'm the president of that club.
Your statement recounts that really ever since 1982, you and your family have been subjected to anti-Semitic threats and abuse. Speaking generally, what measures have you been required to take to address that?
Well, I think you have to look at it in the period from 1982, I'd probably say, to October the 7th, although there was an ever-increasing amount of anti-Semitism, and our family have been very diligent in taking responsibility for our own security, and that has come through over the years, hate mail, some physical issues over the years, not that threatening. I wouldn't say they were that prevalent, but they were always hovering. And obviously, being from a family who has been the subject of the most horrific anti-Semitism, our family, and I would say much of the community, would have been always concerned about this. Anti-Semitism in Australia was a much lower level in those days that you're referring to, but it was still around. Particularly, my father actually did a submission to this commission on the impact of football, soccer, and how he personally actually led change of de-ethnicizing soccer for the benefit of the country. Yes. And so I would say that certainly on the soccer pitch, and I played for some 40 years, there were many incidences that were unpleasant, always focused on anti-Semitism. That still occurs today, I'm told, but at a much, I think, a lower level than it used to, because of the structural change that took place in soccer to de-ethnicize it, and also very strict regulations in place that if you did breach those rules, you would no longer be allowed to play.
And you mentioned the period up to October 7, 2023 had a particular character. What's your observation since then and your experience since then?
Oh, it's dramatically changed, exponentially, I would have to say. On October the 7th, I was actually in the United States. I was in New York. At the time, I was the chair of an organization called Keren Yesod United Israel PL, which is a global body of diaspora Jewry who support humanitarian causes in Israel. And just over a week after October 7, I chose, together with a few of the senior colleagues, to go to Israel. It was actually the single biggest killing of Jews since the Holocaust. I had a responsibility to see how I could personally help, how our organisation could assist, and then share their witness to a horrific event, and how and communicate that to the diaspora Jewry, to ultimately assist through funds and moral support to assist the communities that had been deeply affected. I personally visited those communities. It was the most horrific thing that I certainly would have experienced in my lifetime. Meeting with families of the bereaved, families of those who family members were taken hostage, and of course mental and physical anguish was just horrific. I came back to Sydney just a few days later after that, and actually I felt more unsafe here than I did in Israel. Whilst those who don't often travel to Israel would feel, because of what they see on TV with bombs and missiles and rockets, etc., that it's a very unsafe place, you actually do not feel unsafe there in everyday life. Obviously, when there is intense bombing taking place, you take precautions. But when I came back to Sydney, I felt I'd come back to a different country. I'd observed the television events of October the 9th at the Opera House, but even the night before, or the weekend of the nights before, what was taking place in Western Sydney, the glorification of the most horrific killing of Jews since the Holocaust. It was a very difficult thing to stomach, seeing your own country, your own compatriots acting in this way. So I think from that moment on, life has changed for Jews in this country, and I'm aware that I think more than 20,000 submissions have been made to this commission. I've followed a lot of the witness hearings that have taken place, and a lot of that has already come out. So I don't think I really need to add to that, other than life has changed probably every waking moment for most Jews in this country.
You've described in your statement, in particular, the online harassment and abuse that you've experienced. The Lowy family's security team maintains a monitoring function for online abuse, is that right?
Yes, they do.
Can you give the Commissioner a sense of the volume of threats that you've received over the last few years?
Yes, in the last year alone, Commissioner, there has been more than 15,000 very unpleasant attacks online. Amongst those 15,200 persons of interest have been followed very clearly, and a subset of those have been referred to the police and intelligence. Every month is 1,500, 2,000, in that sort of range. I don't. I'm not on social media because I don't really want to see all of this, but I do certainly get a report about what takes place, and the fear of much of that, which is part of my submission, and where that leads in terms of the physical safety, is very much connected. So I do follow it very carefully from that perspective.
And in terms of the numbers that are serious, regarded by your security advisors as serious enough to raise with the police, and how often would that have occurred in the last year or two?
Well, as I said, there are 200 people that have done at sufficient volume and severity that have noted that we are very careful about those people, and a subset of those, I think it's in the order of 30 to 40. If the Commission would like, I'm sure this can be confirmed. It's in that order that have been referred to police for. Obviously, our security team and in consultation has felt that it was warranted because of the it was particularly ugly statements made online that we felt needed to be followed up, because they could lead to very physical violence.
In your statement, you referred to the fact that the volume and intensity of threats against yourself and the family increases whenever the Lowy family or Israel is in the media, or the subject of a report, or there's a conflict overseas involving Israel. Can you expand on that?
Sure. There are particular spikes every September 11, anniversary of September 11, 2001, the horrific events in New York. There are particularly spikes there of blaming my father for killing 3,000 innocent people. That happens every anniversary and regularly in between. When my father made his submission earlier this year, there was a spike. It's on record that I was lobbying for this commission. I felt it was particularly important, lobbying publicly and privately. And I wrote an op-ed that was published in all of the major mastheads, the AFR, the Herald, the Age, and the Australian, and we got a spike there. So there are, whenever the family is mentioned, when the Director General of ASIO gave the Lowy lecture late last year, I think it was October or November, if I'm correct. There's a spike there. The year before that, Prime Minister Albanese gave the annual Lowy lecture. Big spike there, but not only a big spike, there was also a big protest outside, and particularly focused on our family as well as the Prime Minister.
And have you noticed an increase in the threats and abuse since December 2025?
Yes, well, some of those events that I've described have been since my op-ed, my dad's submission.
Yes.
I would expect the media that comes out of appearing here will lead to that for sure. It is somewhat of a concern to me, but nonetheless, I felt a deep responsibility to share this with the Commission. So I certainly would expect that, yes.
Your statement also describes the online abuse that your wife has received in particular on TikTok as a result of her service on board of Moriah College.
Yes.
Can you tell the Commissioner about that?
Yes. My wife, I think for 18 years, has been on the board of Moriah College. For the Commissioner's benefit, the Moriah College is the largest Jewish day school in Australia, with some 1,600 children. Like all Jewish schools, it's a fortified institution, physically, electronically, and with guarding. After October 7, my wife is not only on the board, she's also the founding president of the foundation. The foundation raises funds for children of parents that find it difficult to afford the private school fees. Is their main task, as well as other tasks, of course, that a foundation does, including raising money for building enhancement, etc. And there was a webinar event that my wife Judy held for the families who support the foundation and the parents of the school, and that somehow that was infiltrated, and it ended up on TikTok, of course, using technical tools. It was adjusted, modified, and the headline of that was calling my wife Genocide Judy. Her name's Judy, and then there was suddenly a hashtag Genocide Judy. I think it was published by somebody with over 230,000 followers. It's had enormous airplay. I believe it was taken down, as a lot of these things are. They go up and they go down. They go up and they go down. But yeah, that's one of the particularly distressing for somebody who's trying to raise funds for disadvantaged families to pay for private school fees, and this is what you get. It's particularly difficult to cope with that. But she's strong and we're strong, and we continue on with our task.
I'd be proposed to take you to some specific examples
Please.
of the online posts, and I will ask the operator to bring up some redacted copies of what you've provided to the Commission, and these examples will be displayed on the hearing room monitors and on the live stream, but in redacted form. So can I bring up first stat.899.001.0235_0027. You have to bear with the numbers, Mr. Lowy.
Is this from the SL2 document?
SL2, that's
right.
Correct, yes. And this was an infographic, so-called, published on Instagram in February 2026.
Will I see this on the screen?
Yes, sorry, I'm waiting.
No, that's okay.
I think we should all see it, yes.
I have it in front of me too, so I was...
Just while we're waiting, can I ask you this, Mr. Lowy?
Yes.
You mentioned your involvement in an international charity
Yes.
that raises funds for humanitarian
Yes.
aid in Israel.
Yes.
Can you just give us a couple of examples of the sort of things that body does?
Sure. Thank you, of course. First of all, that body has been in existence since 1920. It is one of the 4 national institutions of Israel. It was the state of Israel came into play in 1947, 1948, so it's 25 years plus before that. It was an organization that was created to raise funds from diaspora Jews, mainly American at the time, because prior to that, most of the other Jews were in Europe, and of course the Holocaust, and 6 million people died there. So that organization still exists today. Its international name is Keren Hayesod. It means Foundation Fund in Hebrew. The Australian division is called the United Israel Appeal, and its funds are for raising funds for disadvantaged parts of Israel. Israel is known as a country that is economically strong, technologically advanced, medically advanced, but 1/3 of the children in Israel are actually under the poverty level. You have in Israel, you have the 2 major cities of Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Lots of the periphery of the country are very poor and somewhat neglected. And for almost 100 years now, more than 100 years now, the diaspora jury have been raising funds to assist in schooling, in medicine, particularly since October 7, with the rebuilding of many of the communities that were devastated. The mental health issues in Israel are just horrific and have increased exponentially. So it's those type of issues that we raise funds for.
Thank you.
Could we go to the next page, please? Underscore 0027. So, Mr. Lowy,
Yes.
on the left there, of course, the post says Israel, then an Australian and an Israel flag.
Yes.
And the comments on the right include a poster saying, "Execute those old bastards,"
Yes.
referring to the 8 prominent Jewish members of the Australian community, including your father.
Yes.
And then could we go to the next page, 0028?
This particular one has appeared many, many times.
Yes. And many times on the one platform or across platforms.
I'm not sure about that. I can get that answered for you offline if you would like me to.
I think from your statement, these are Instagram posts.
Okay, thank you.
This has the same image on the left, but continues the chain of commentary.
Yes.
One of them in this instance, but the one in the middle, when we'll start killing them, genuine question, they ate our children.
Yes.
And then next page, underscore 0029. In the same thread, one of the posters asks if anyone knows their addresses. Now, you said this was a post that had been very persistent, and as I understand your statement, that has been escalated to law enforcement authorities.
Yes.
And do you know what's occurred as a result of that?
No.
And then if we can go to page underscore 0031. So the headline and sub-headline on the left under an image of your father, and then the comments on the right, including, again, explicit calls for murder.
Yes.
And then the next page, underscore 0032. Again, I won't read it all out, but in the comments on the right, another call to murder, and then there's a comment under that, it's a dirty, and then 3 emojis follow. And you understand that to be what's described as a juice box emoji, which is used as a simplistic proxy for a reference to Jews.
Right.
And then the next page, underscore 0033. This is another few comments in the chain of the image on the left that I've shown you before, and you've recorded in your statement this particularly distressing example, I imagine, of Holocaust denial, but in a context of threats to the Lowy family.
Yes.
Now, if you don't mind, I will show an image of frame from TikTok videos attacking your wife. Are you?
Please.
So at underscore 0009. The image of your wife on the left with the hashtag genocide Judy that you referred to earlier
Yes.
in your evidence, and then the comments on the right include disgusting and shameful, but it's not talking about hashtag, is it? It's talking about your wife's conduct.
Yes.
And if the operator could turn up underscore 0010. A new commentary on the left under the image, and then further abuse on the right in the comments chain.
Yes.
Could I ask the operator then go to underscore page 0016? The image on the left of four men, including your father.
Yes.
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 And then the commentary on the right, explicitly calling again for this, in this instance, public execution.
Yes. This is myself and my two brothers with my father.
Yes. And if the operator would go to the next page, underscore 0017. Now the cartoon feature in the commentary is apparently Luigi from Super Mario Brothers, but and the text says Luigi intensifies. That, as we understand it, is an apparent reference to the alleged killer Luigi Mangione. Is that the way it's understood?
That is correct. Yes.
So, again, it's a call for physical violence or murder.
Yes, it is.
And if the operator can then go to page underscore 0018. And this contains the phrase I referred to a little earlier today in my opening, if the apparent attempt to evade artificial intelligence moderating programs by, instead of saying kill all Jews, to say jill all Qs.
Yes.
And then you've given some other examples of online threats and abuse. Could I go to underscore 0021? This is a comment posted on the X platform in March this year, and the last 4 lines visible on the screen suggests there's some doubt about the cause of the synagogue being set on fire in Australia, and a conspiracy theory or just a fantasy that it, according to the poster, sounds more like an insurance job by some Zionist.
Yes.
Now, has it been your experience that the social media platforms act against this kind of online abuse once it's brought to their attention?
I'm far from an expert in this field. My understanding is a number of them have, and a number of them have not. But I firmly believe that they should be subject to the same regulation and rules that more traditional media has, and I'm sure this is a matter for the Commission to consider. But it's very disturbing that this can occur, often anonymously, sometimes not, almost unchecked, and then when there are, it's after the fact that issues are dealt with as opposed to before the fact. So I'm not really an expert in this field, Mr. Lancaster, but it disturbs me the volume and prevalence of it and the serious nature of it. Because I think if you would say this you would be subject to conviction in other areas where this was communicated. Prosecution, excuse me. Yes.
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 You've described in your statement several instances where online abuse has resulted in referrals to police.
Yes.
Because they have been assessed as posing a credible threat to your physical safety.
Yes.
Your statement in paragraph 34 refers to a few particular examples of that. Can I ask you to address to the Commissioner just a couple of those examples, just to describe what happened?
Well, there's a range of, you're referring to 34 A through D?
Yes.
Would you like me to read those, or what would you?
Indeed.
Yes, thank you. A Queensland-based individual whose online posts included express ideation of travelling to Canberra and committing violent acts, possibly a targeted assassination, coupled with claimed firearms experience. An account offering payments for violence against Jewish people, which publicly claimed to finance Palestinian resistance. C. A comment made by a person who publicly called for my father and other named Jewish Australians to be executed. That would be what you referred to in previously.
Yes.
And a cascade of public death threats following a hostile online article about my father in March 2026, including explicit calls to kill him and references to the recent alleged assassin Luigi Mangione, which has also been referred to separately. Yes.
Now, I don't wish to ask you to disclose anything you think of as sensitive operational detail or the like, but what steps have you and your family had to take to deal, firstly, with the online abuse you've experienced and also the threat to your physical well-being?
Well, these specifically have been referred, as you said, to the authorities. Sitting here, I'm not fully sure of the feedback of where that goes. We do refer it. We don't always get the feedback to these specifically. But we have a constant focus on physical protection. Because of these can't be looked at in isolation. I highlight other issues in my witness statement about surveillance at our home and potential protests at our home, some physical, perceived physical threats in the street directed at us. So yes, there are many instances that are highlighted in here, and personally I don't really differentiate between online and offline. I worry more about offline because there's thousands here. Probably much of it is rubbish, but some of it you want to pick up the one that's really disturbing. And I have a firm belief that this online threats lead to or inspire others to do physical activity and violent physical activity. And I guess that's where the main focus of our protection is. Online is more about gathering this information on a regular basis. But on the physical side of things, one needs to be diligent all of the time, which causes enormous psychological issues everywhere you go. Whenever you go in and out of your home, What events do you choose to speak at? What events do you choose not to speak at? What are you prepared to say publicly and privately? This sits with you all of the time, and it sits with many, I'm sure, Jewish people who would be considering every word and every step of every day, because these threats sort of hover over us. We're focused clearly on the online issues here, and the volume of this is enormous, and we're just one family. So I can imagine if you multiply this not just by other prominent families, but all Australians, all Australian Jews, and many, I'm well aware, have been subject to even more disturbing online threats than this. So this is an issue that we live with it really every day. But the most concern is protecting against the physical threats.
You mentioned that you'd like to see social media platforms held to the same standards as traditional media outlets.
Yes.
And you address in paragraph 52 some observations about measures that you'd like to see social media platforms take. Can you just briefly describe that?
Well, the measure, there's a number of recommendations that I make. Probably the social media ones are the least referenced, because I actually have the least knowledge of those. I have, I think, a lot more knowledge of the other recommendations that I make that I hope will be seriously considered by this commission and law enforcement ultimately. But clearly there needs to be enforceable standards and legislative frameworks in these issues. And I'm also well aware of most of these, all of these are foreign entities, and regulating foreign entities is very different than regulating domestic entities. And the challenges of regulating technology are enormous. But I do think it is incumbent on our government, and all governments for that matter, to put frameworks in place and legislation in place that can, and with real tough measures, because you can't put it in the Australian, you can't publish it in the Australian. They want to kill somebody, but you can do it on social media, and either leave it there or pull it down with almost no repercussions. And some social media networks won't even pull it down. Others will, others won't. So I guess it's a very big issue, very complex for the Commission to appreciate, and therefore also the government to enforce. I do appreciate that, and I do believe that needs to be seriously considered. But I also believe there are many other matters of policing and intelligence that should be considered by the Commission, because they ultimately lead to the physical.
Yeah, and you have referred to some other recommendations that you make that they can be found in a submission that you've made on the 6th of May this year that the Commission's also received.
Yes.
Yep. I understand that you would like to conclude your evidence by in a particular way. Can I ask you to identify the source of what you'd like to say?
Sure. I have came across something that I would like to read out, if with your permission.
Can you describe where it's from? And
yes, I'll do that in my as I read it out.
Certainly, yes.
Commissioner Bell, Mr. Lancaster, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to make this brief closing statement. I recently came across a quote from the famous Booker Prize-winning novelist Howard Jacobson, who lived and worked in Australia for many years. It explains better than I can why we are at a watershed moment in Australian history. This is what he said. The first time I went to Australia, I remember writing to my mother within a few weeks saying, "Ma, it's fantastic here, in all sorts of ways. This is great, and oh, by the way, it's fantastic to be a Jew here. I feel really safe here." And she wrote back and said, "Darling, I didn't know that you ever didn't feel safe in England." And I said, "Well, I didn't know either, but until I came here, I didn't feel this easygoingness in relation to being Jewish." And it was easygoing. The Jews I met, and I met a lot of them in Sydney and Melbourne, and they were in bliss land, as he described. It was a really good place to be a Jew because you didn't feel you were here at the behest of or despite of someone else. You didn't feel you weren't meant to be there. You didn't feel you weren't meant to be there. And now, if you're Jewish, you do. And that's tragic. Commissioner, it is my opinion that Jacobson is right. It is tragic. But I remain hopeful because of the basic decency of the vast majority of Australians and because of the work of this Commission. Our future as a country can return to what it used to be. The best place in the world to live for Jews and everyone else. I thank the Commissioner for the opportunity to appear as a witness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowy. No other questions?
No, thank you, Commissioner.
Michelle? Mr. Bender. Thank you, Mr. Lowy. You are excused, and you may thank your father for his very excellent submission.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. You'll be pleased to hear that. Thank you.
And Mr. Sherman will be
Yes.
next.
Yes.
Commissioner, our next witness is Dr Lee Kofman.
Yes.
Motion, please. Go ahead.
No, just.
I'd like to take affirmation, please.
Yes. Do you solemnly and sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence you give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, please say aye.
I do.
Dr Kofman, you've provided a statement to Commission dated the 20th of June 2026, is that correct?
Yes.
Commissioner, the statement bears the document ID STAT 8893093.001_R.
Yes.
And I might just indicate for the leave to appear parties that the statement continues to be covered by a non-publication direction and further version will be prepared. If I could tender both the statement and the accompanying exhibits.
Yes, indeed. The statement and the exhibits will be received. Yes.
Now, Dr Kofman, that the contents of that statement are true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief, is that right?
Yes.
And you are an Australian writer, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you've given some evidence that you identify as a left-wing Zionist. Could you explain what that means to you?
Absolutely, yes. So I have a really deep connection to Israel. I was born in the Soviet Union, and I'm a daughter to Jewish dissidents in the Soviet Union. And for me, for my family, Israel was a country of refuge. We came there from the Soviet Union to escape persecution. I have deep connection to this country. I lived there for 14 years. I believe it has the right to exist. At the same time, and this is very common for many Israelis and many Jewish people all around the world, I also care for Palestinian rights. I support wholly and passionately two-state solution. I worked as a social worker before I became a full-time writer. I worked with Palestinian people in Israel, and I taught social work in Australia as well, in different universities. I'm very committed to social justice. I consider myself to be a progressive Jew.
Thank you. And it's correct, isn't it? You hold a PhD in social sciences, a Master in Arts in Creative Writing, and a Bachelor's degree in social work. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And for the last 14 years, you've been writing, teaching, and mentoring writers full-time as a freelancer. Is that right?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little about that work?
Yes. So my first 3 books were written and published in Israel. And in Australia, I wrote 6 books. And my latest book is actually about what happened in Australia after October 7. It's an anthology of 36 personal essays that are co-edited with Tamar Paluch. We featured there women from Jewish backgrounds in Australia from all walks of life, from lots of different occupations and places, about how their lives changed after October 7 here. I also teach and mentor writers all around Australia.
And in writing your most recent book, what insights or themes did you learn about how the lives of Jewish women had changed in Australia since October 7?
So it would be, of course, very difficult to summarize it briefly, but what I could say overall, the change has been tremendous. And we really made sure that this book represents very diverse viewpoints, and still one thing that comes with every essay is that life is completely irrevocably changed for all of us. And one of the themes that particularly stands out to me as an editor is the silence that has surrounded our experiences in Australia, a silence from our non-Jewish colleagues and friends and people who say they really love us and support us, and still there's a lot of silence and misunderstanding around what we are going through, and also this silencing, which is why I'm so grateful today to get this really precious to me opportunity to appear in front of the Commissioner, because I feel that I've been silenced for a long time now, since October 7.
And in your work as a writer, you've won a number of writing awards, is that correct?
Yes. Some of my books are shortlisted or longlisted for Australian awards, and also a lot of my short works have been shortlisted or won different awards around the world. Yeah.
And in terms of your personal experiences of anti-Semitism, could you just tell us a little about the extent to which you'd experienced anti-Semitism in Australia before the 7th of October?
Yes, absolutely. So generally speaking, I've never encountered until October 7 any explicit overt anti-Semitism directed towards me, to the extent that in my early years in Australia, I kind of feel guilty that I used to write about my experiences of anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union, where my family was regularly persecuted by the state and also by individuals. Because I was thinking, well, I live now in Australia, how relevant can it be to my life currently? And I really miss that sort of naivete. However, over the last 15 years or so, increasingly, I started to experience different microaggressions. So what I mean by this is, for example, a lot of people in my literary milieu felt nothing wrong, but it was totally natural for them to come, and upon learning that I'm an Israeli-Australian writer, to start telling me all that is wrong with Israel, expressing all the political views to me. I don't know if they would have done it to any other minority member from any other country. And even more so, more pervasively, what I've noticed in the last 15 years is that whenever I would appear in public, in particular in different media interviews or in literary events, or whenever people even just talk to me in literary events, they would really take lots of care of emphasizing how amazing it is, how wonderful it is that I was born in Russia, and would ask me all about Russia, and would really skip over my Israeli background, to the extent that once I was interviewed, for example, on ABC, and the interviewer kept repeatedly asking me, so how is it for you to change writing languages from Russian to English? And I repeatedly kept saying, but I've never written books in Russian. I changed it from Hebrew to English. So I really never felt completely that I was fully able to express my identity as a Russian and Ukrainian, as well, Israeli, Australian Jew.
And in terms of the experience that you've had of anti-Semitism since the 7th of October, how did your professional peers in the literary community respond to those events?
Thank you. So my life really changed completely since October 7. Very early on, when the massacre happened, I had a lot of really beautiful personal messages of support from a lot of my peers, because for a lot of my friends in the literary community, and I used to have really a lot, and I still do, luckily. For a lot of my friends in the literary community, I would be the only Jewish person in their lives, and for, I would dare say, almost everybody, I would be the only Israeli person in their lives. And so I had this beautiful outpour of support. However, in the public sphere, what I've seen is that there was almost complete silence. There was no outcry. There was nothing about what happened to my people on October 7. My colleagues, my peers, who are normally very social justice conscious as I am, did not find it in them to publicly to express any supportive sentiments. And this is when my alienation really began. But then a bit later, when I say a bit later, I'm talking about maybe 2 weeks post-massacre, or even maybe earlier, the worst massacre, as other witnesses stated, since the Holocaust of Jewish people. Very soon after, I noticed a trend on social media among my peers to post things that sort of kind of maybe not completely justifies the rape, the burning, the killings that happened on October 7, but maybe just to contextualize it, to explain it, to minimize it. And then open letters started to appear. The first letter that I mentioned in my statement, what really threw me and was the real turning point in my feelings about belonging in Australian literary community and in Australia generally, was a letter that was published on the 21st of October in Overland Literary Magazine, which is a very long-standing, very well-respected magazine. In this letter, I will not talk about this letter's politics that I see as quite one-sided, but what really struck me in that letter and left really profound wound for me and for many other Jewish writers I know, and Jewish people generally, there was not even one word of empathy toward the victims of October 7. Now, I spent my youth in Israel. I used to go to music festivals like Nova Festival. It could have been me, it could have been my children. It was very easy for me to imagine any of us could have been heard there. And here were my colleagues, people whose books I have at home, people who supported me, signing this letter that expressed absolutely no empathy for people like myself, for our lives, dehumanizing us basically. Sorry, it's a bit hard to talk about it. And in that letter, it just talked about armed attacks by Palestinian people that have to be contextualized by this and this and this. In the first draft of this letter, that already was signed by a lot of people, some people I knew, there was another sentence that was later removed by the Overlands saying, if crimes were committed on October 7, so not crimes were committed, but if crimes were committed, they should be investigated. And so that really was a trigger that set in motion many other changes of my life, which are on the statement.
Certainly. And I might just ask the operator to bring up the letter. So if the operator could call up stat.899.001.0244, which is an extra LK1. And I should indicate that the annexures to Dr. Kofman's statement will not be made available on the live stream, but will be viewable in the hearing room monitors. Is this the letter that you were referring to
Yes.
a moment ago? And it was a letter that was addressed to the Minister for the Arts and the Prime Minister, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
And there's an identification of the identity of the signatories in the bottom paragraph, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
And if I could just go to the page that ends _0002, which would be PDF page 3. In your statement, I think you make particular reference to the third substantive paragraph, the first large paragraph on that page.
Yeah.
What is it about that paragraph that particularly caused you concern?
To me, this letter basically implied the victims of October 7, the baby, the old people, the disabled people, the young people who were dancing in the festival, had it coming for them. Had it coming for me or for any other Jewish person who could have been, and not just Jewish people who were murdered and kidnapped on that day.
And I understand you've taken that meaning from the paragraph. Is it the first sentence that presents problems for you in terms of the contextualization of the violence? Is that
Yes.
that the
Yes.
passage you have difficulties with? I see. Now, without naming them, did you recognise signatories to the letter?
I did, and I also had a friend who signed this letter without a lot of thought. This friend later wanted to withdraw their signature, and the Overland editors, to my knowledge, were not very receptive of that.
And in response to this letter, your statement goes on to describe an open letter titled Jews for Humanity, which you published together with 1,500 signatories. Could you tell the Commission a little bit about how that came to be?
Absolutely. So this letter was really just the trigger. It was generally what stood out to me at the time is that while our colleagues, not just in the literary world, but in the arts generally, were not expressing any public empathy at all for Israeli and non-Israeli victims of the massacre of October 7, they also, at the same time, the anti-Semitism in the arts rapidly increased. It was just absolutely surreal. It was like it's like in one day and everything just exploded, increased very quickly. Many of us, writers, painters, musicians, we started to be marginalized. We started to be put to purity tests in a way that no other minority, from what I've seen around, and I've been around the literary scene in Australia for over 25 years. I haven't seen any minority put to purity tests to see are we Zionists? Are we not Zionists? Do we support the Israeli government? And even if somebody like myself who completely opposes the current Israeli government, that was not good enough. Can we deny? Can we say that we don't believe in Israel's right to exist, etc., etc.? So we started to being really pushed aside very quickly, and so I decided to decided that for me personally, it was either to really sink into quite serious depression, because writing, the literary world, it's all my life. And I've been writing, my first book was published when I was 20 years old. That's all I know, that's all I live and breathe. And so it's easier for me to sink into depression or actually do something. And so together with several other Jewish writers, we banded together and we put an open letter calling on our peers, on our literary and also academic peers. I taught at universities, as I mentioned before, in Australia. And I have friends in many universities, and I know how tough it was for them as well. It's basically the progressive circles, Jews like us, progressive Jews who circulate in the arts and academy. We had the impact of the anti-Semitism very quickly. So we put together this letter calling on our peers, calling on our colleagues to call out the anti-Semitism, to stop it, and acknowledge that you can really express empathy for both sides of the conflict without but that to me, this is real social justice, not rushing to take sides in a conflict that you are actually not involved in and had no skin in the game.
Yes, and then in about October 2023, I understand that you created a WhatsApp group for Australian Jewish creators and academics that was called Jewish with full stops between each letter. Creatives and academics. Was that in response to the same kinds of considerations that you were just elaborating on a moment ago?
Absolutely. I just took very quickly preface this and say that this group is why I'm here today.
Yes.
Because I know it's not easy to give a testimony. It's not easy for me emotionally. I had to relive the whole trauma of the last 2.5 years just to come here, just to be able to do this statement. But I'm here because I feel that in the last 2.5 years, over 600 people, 630 to be precise, beautiful people whom I got to know over the last 2.5 years, people who are honored to know have been dragged through the mud because of what happened with this group that I created. To answer your question, yes, I created this group for two purposes. One, because it was easier in this way to collect signatures for our letter. But the main purpose was I felt that we needed safe space. We needed a safe space to process what was going on in our professional environments, and we needed to band together for advocacy. There are so few Jewish people in Australia, as you probably know better than me. We constitute, in my memory, 0.4% Australian population. In the arts, we are always a very tiny minority. And so I just felt that being so few and so much under attack from the very sort of start of the aftermath of October 7, we needed some place to process together things and to try also to do some advocacy and resistance if needed. And so that's why I created that group. And the need was really out there. The fact that in about 2 weeks we had over 600 members shows that.
And as I understand it from your evidence, the group members use the group to support each other emotionally and share resources and discuss ways of just addressing discrimination. Is that right?
Absolutely. That's exactly why we ended there. Later, after the doxing happened to our group, we were portrayed in a very, very strange to me or sinister way. But actually it shouldn't be strange because it really adheres to stereotypes about Jewish people, of what happens when Jewish people get together. If you don't mind, if I can just backtrack very, very briefly to my childhood in the Soviet Union. In the Soviet Union, a lot of the things that happened to Jewish people in the Soviet Union, they're really playing themselves now in front of my eyes. Because I was a daughter of dissidents, I see and I lived it. I lived through, constant KGB surveillance for 6 years. My family lived. I see very similar dynamics happening here as well in progressive circles in particular. And so when we later were doxed and we were portrayed as the sinister cabal, if I can quote from memory some of the most prominent posts about our group and how we were defined as a secret group that got together to fire anti-genocide activists from their jobs, or something surreal like this. It's completely surreal because I'm not anti-genocide. I don't like genocide. I'm very much anti-genocide myself. So I can absolutely confidently say all the people in this group. But just in fact. Maybe to just give a little background about the kind of people that were in this group and still are. We're still going very, very strong together. There's just a bit less of us, 400 people as of today, and I'm very proud of this. But it's a group that has been predominantly composed of Jews like myself who consider themselves to be progressive, who are in the arts and academy, advocate for two-state solution, often very critical of Netanyahu government. And many people like myself there really support peace activism. So when we got together, I was hoping that together we could make some kind of a change, and we did. The thing that we did when we're still doing we share resources, we share stories together. We sometimes some of our members, not as an organized group, not as an organized cabal, but some of us write letters or exercise our democratic rights. We sometimes share petitions, and we have resisted as well in this group several very powerful personalities in the public domain, in the arts, in academy, because of their anti-Semitism, not because they're anti-genocide,
Yes.
but because of anti-Semitic hate speech, in my opinion, that expressed, and sometimes misinformation such as denial of sexual violence, October 7. This was actually a very small part of what we did in this group and still are doing.
And
I'm
can I
very
just
proud.
stress the doxing itself?
Absolutely.
So, as I understand it, that occurred in January 2024. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
And at some point during January 2024, the transcripts of the group for a period between November to January became public. Is that right?
Yes.
And that occurred because someone provided the transcripts to a third party and it was then provided to journalists. Is that correct?
It's correct. It was a very well documented case in the media, both in Australia and internationally. We had a New York Times journalist in our group, Natasha Frost, her name is everywhere, so it's out in the public. She left the group because she was writing about a story about somebody who was discussed in our group. And she told me it's not ethical for her to be in a group. I provided commission with, I believe, in this screenshot of her post to me. And soon after she wrote the story, and soon after late January, I think it was started on Australia Day when I was picnicking with my friends and children, posts started to come out with screenshots of the chat from our group.
And could I just ask the operator to call up a document which is SEAT.8.9.0001.0245_R? Which I think is an extra LK2 to your statement containing some social media posts linking to the WhatsApp group chat. And just to direct your attention to the top paragraph on the right-hand side of the page, which reads, "The Leak Zionist chat provides critical insight into how Zionists organise and operate in so-called progressive arts, academics and media spaces. It demonstrates the coordinated efforts of those working to silence criticism in the Zionist state." Do you see that statement? And is that what you were referring to before when you were talking about the tropes that were deployed in relation to the group?
Absolutely. So really, it's interesting because we were portrayed as a group that got together for coordinated effort to dispossess anti-genocide activists from their jobs, which is completely false and incorrect. It was not what the group was about, and everybody who can read this chat will see it very clearly. But the campaign against us was really coordinated well. And I'll give you specific examples. So when the doxing and then subsequent online harassment began, it was on a very big scale. It didn't happen just in Australia, it was international actually. Children's books, according to people who posted about it, he did a very thorough job of going through our entire chat, and there was an Excel sheet there was a link to the chat and also to Excel sheet listing all the group members with the details of their work, with the details of the social media account, sometimes occasionally with the details of the family member. There was a schoolgirl on that list who actually was not in our group named. And there was also, it was so meticulously thought through and organized. There was also, next to most of the members, or maybe all of us, the exact number of how many posts we've made over the 3 months. That takes a lot of work, a lot of thought to go into. The posts were very systematic. There was also in this link, and circulated very widely online, lists of our photographs, sometimes 100 photographs, sometimes 30 photographs with our names, and the captions were along the lines of "These are genocidal Zionists."
And indeed, if you look at the bottom of this page, if I could just get operator to scroll down a little, there's an example of that phenomenon that you've just described with faces of individuals and names trade. How did the members of the group react to that kind of portrayal?
It was really, really horrendous for us. But before I talk about the impact, would you mind if I said 2 more words about what was done to us and how it was done? Because I think it's a really striking example of how organized this kind of campaign was. And I think it's a really good case study of how antisemitism can operate online. there were very few excerpts in that group that can be considered to be compromising. And so almost all the posts about it really recycled those very few semi-problematic posts. But there were a lot of posts that as an administrator of the group, I was deleting. Mostly, sometimes because the language was a bit inflammatory, I didn't want it in a group, I wanted a sportive, sportive and very fair group conversation. But very often I would delete those posts because people just posted too much. They argued too much, or they posted the same article again and again, because there was not much meat to work with for people who coordinated this campaign. There was a lot of speculation about the deleted post, which was really interesting. Another thing I want to say about this, and I know we'll come back to this later, but just flag now, is that this online harassment, this online framing of 600 Jewish people who really are beautiful people, some very successful in the fields of arts and academy, many of them are known for their commitment to social justice. And yet this campaign was taken for granted and believed by so many people so quickly, by arts institutions who were supposed to support, by academic circles, and by some large pockets of prominent media. And what I want to say about is that the question is why? Why did it spread so fast without actually talking to us? Why people want to believe? And I'll go back to my childhood in Soviet Union, where every gathering of Jews was always suspect. It was exactly the same tropes. I think because the narrative about us, we decided to open the secret group and to plot against other people. We had power, we want, all this sort of stuff. It really feels what many people, unfortunately, maybe subconsciously feel about Jews. I mean, I don't have any other explanation why otherwise it happened so fast.
And I understand that members of the WhatsApp group contacted state and territory police, the AFP and the E-Safety Commissioner, is that right?
Absolutely, and I'm so sorry, I just realized I didn't answer your previous question, which is how we were affected. We were affected horrendously.
Yeah.
So I can speak for myself, but my experience is not one of the worst. In my case, I lost about 75% of my work, freelance work, which was all with literary organizations all around Australia, organizations who employed me for 10, 15, 17 years, organizations which love employing me, because until October 7, and still now when I teach, I don't want to talk myself up, but it's important to say it for the record, my workshops and writing courses that I teach, they almost always sell out and have long waiting lists. That's why I've been working with organizations on a regular basis for such a long time. Workplaces that employ me were friends, were called to received letters. So people basically did to us what they said we did, which we didn't. It wasn't just me. So many people from our group got really defamatory letters to their workplaces saying that they genocidal Zionists who plot together to dispossess, pro-Palestinian anti-genocide activists of their jobs. Mental health issues about our group members were rife. Together with a few psychologists in our group, we organized a few mental health sessions actually on Zoom. We had to call on psychologists. There were some businesses were defamed and harassed and physically defaced. A couple from our group who I believe one of them testified here before, and you know the story, they had to relocate to a safer suburb. There were death threats against our members. The impact is not in the past, it still is. It's a reputational impact. Some academics had their names withdrawn from projects, but they were doing it at university together with their colleagues. Many of us still feel this impact. It's still there.
Mm. And just returning to the law enforcement question, I understand that you yourself didn't report the matter to law enforcement, but you understand that others did.
Yes.
Is that right?
The reason I did not report it is because I was so overwhelmed with managing the leak, the doxing, and then the abuse, and trying to support others. I didn't have a lot of time. I also I have two young children, school children with special needs, which requires hyper-parenting, what I call, and I don't have any extended family in Australia to support me and my husband and that. And what I saw is that so many of members of our group repeatedly reported what happened to them to police, to local police, to federal police, to e-safety commissioner, again and again and again. There were many of us, so there were lots of reports, and nothing to my knowledge eventuated, no consequences. So I just felt at that point, before the really more serious online abuse of me began, that there was no point for me to spend time on that.
I just wanted to come back to one point from your evidence. I think you did give some evidence that in February 2025 you were contacted by the AFP in connection with a particular operation that was directed at this issue. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. So, yes, my first contact, even before February 2025, I did try not to report to police, but I did try to report on posts, and always got back from Instagram and from Facebook. I got back replies that it doesn't meet the criteria for removing those posts. But in 2025 February, I was contacted by police for the first time because they were investigating the leak and the doxing and everything. And it was interesting because that was a year after that occurred. And after that, I gave numerous statements about various online abuse that I received. Also, after the new anti-doxing laws were commenced, anti-doxing laws that pretty much were established in response to what happened to us in that WhatsApp group. I had numerous policemen contact me, taking statements from me on the phone, in person at my home. I wrote some statements for them, and we were all very lovely and polite and kind, and it was all very positive interactions, but nothing, to my knowledge, eventuated at all. So I really what I want to say is that I feel that there is a real wound, not just for the members of this group, but for our entire Jewish community. I can safely say it's a real open wound. The fact that nobody, not the person who exported the chat, not the person who then disseminated it, not the people who doxed us, not the people who continued to harass us, nobody was brought to justice. We do know that Natasha Frost knows who she gave the chat to, and we think that person probably disseminated it. We also know from the statement that the New York Times gave to Wall Street Journal. My understanding from that statement is that the New York Times probably know too, but nobody ever issued subpoena to them.
Just a couple of final questions. You've given some evidence about being personally targeted by people with large social media profiles and authors. In your statement, you talk about some of the mental health consequences of doxing on you personally and some of those subsequent interactions. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that topic?
Absolutely. So the people who, as I was saying early on, we did try to resist as much as we could, feeling really powerless, seeing that a lot of public personalities with really large followings were getting away consistently with anti-Semitic speech and with disinformation, especially about the sexual violence of October 7. And those people who we discussed in the group and those people who we signed petitions against, they're actually among the people who doxed us, the main people who have continued to harass us. And some of these people, including one very well-known feminist influencer who used to have, I think, 250,000 followers, particularly took a personal issue with me because once paid $25 to make the petition about her more visible.
I don't think we need to go into the details of that.
Course.
But
I'm just saying.
In terms of its impact on you.
So the impact was really horrendous. I mean, I've never had anybody before this social influencer making 2 quite long videos about me, calling me really words.
We don't need to get into the details.
Of course.
If you could speak to the
Can I try, Ms. Kofman, to distill aspects of what you have been telling us? But firstly, can I ask, do you have friends or family in Israel?
I have really wonderful friends in Israel. Yes.
And what upset you about the letter in the Overland was not that the creatives who signed it were sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, it was that they showed no sympathy for the brutality of what was done by Hamas to the Israelis. Is that fair?
Commissioner, thank you so much for putting it so clearly and succinctly for me. That's correct.
Well, can I just go a couple of further steps with you, Ms.
Yes, please.
Kofman? After that, you formed Jews for Humanity with the idea of getting as many signatures as you could on a petition which was designed to support the idea of justice for Israelis and justice for Palestinians.
Yes.
And you did that because you personally are a supporter of what's called the two-state solution. Is that fair?
That's very fair.
And then you set up the WhatsApp group, partly because you perceived the need for a support group for creatives like yourself, but partly because you wanted to get as big a spread as you could to encourage signatures for the Jews for Humanity petition.
That's the very initial purpose, but that letter was finished and done within the first months of the group's existence.
I understand. Sorry, Mr.
No, Commissioner. I have no further questions. That's perfect.
I don't have any questions.
Ms. Sharp and Mr. Bender. Thank you, Ms. Kofman. You are excused.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner, our next witness has been given the pseudonym ACF. If I could call witness ACF.
Yes.
And ABL.
Will you be taking an oath or an affirmation?
Sorry, the one who...
Will you be taking an oath or an affirmation? Will you be taking an oath or an affirmation?
Well, I will be taking oath.
Sorry, could you please repeat that?
Can you hear me? I will take an oath.
Oath?
Yes.
Just one moment before you administer the oath. I think we've got some technical problems. I may be hard of hearing, but I think we're all stretched by this. So what I'm going to do is take a very brief adjournment to see if we can adjust the technical difficulties. Thank you.
All right.
Let's try again.
ACF, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please say I do. Can you hear us?
Witness ACF, can you hear us speaking?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. We might just administer an oath now, if that's okay. So if you listen to the court officer and repeat what she asks.
Sure.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please say I do.
I do.
Witness ACF, have you given a statement to the Commission dated the 23rd of June 2026?
Yes, I have.
Commissioner, that statement has the document ID STAT.899.001.0253_R. If I could tender that statement and its exhibits.
Yes, and that statement is received.
Excellent. Witness ACF, there's a non-publication direction over your name, and you've been given that pseudonym for purposes of your evidence. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Now, I don't want you to tell me anything that might identify who you are, but could you tell me a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yes, so I am 45 years old, happily married with kids. We live in Australia, one of the largest cities, and we are a Jewish family. I was born in the Soviet Union, but moved to Israel where my kids were born. And then in 2014, we have moved to Australia.
And when you moved to Australia in 2014, what was the main reason for the move?
We have family in Australia for years, so it was a family uniting process.
And without providing details that might identify it, can you tell me a little bit about the school that your son attends?
Yes, so my son is currently 14 years old. He attends a public secondary school all through his education in Australia, which is sort of the only education that he receives. He went to public education facilities from primary school and then continued to the secondary school together with his friends where he wanted to study.
And he commenced his current school in Year 7, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that was in 2024, correct?
Yes.
And so at that time he was about 11 or 12 years old, is that right?
He started as 11 years old and through the year he turned 12.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about his friends at school at the point that he started?
Yes, so as I mentioned, he moved with his friends from primary school to secondary, kids from different backgrounds. I was aware of a few kids who were Jewish backgrounds, but he's very social kid, so he had plenty of kids from different backgrounds as part of his regular friends.
And when you refer to backgrounds in this context, are you referring to cultural or ethnic backgrounds or other types of backgrounds?
Probably both ethnic, cultural, religious. So we sort of seeing kids from different countries, Australian born, overseas born, different religions. Yes.
Now, in your statement, you give some evidence about an incident that occurred in the April 2024 school holidays. Can I ask you what you noticed about your son's behaviour at that time?
Yes, so my son, during the school holidays, noticed that he was glued to his phone, which is not normal case. A bit sad. So at some point I took his phone, had to look through the social media apps that he was on, and that was specifically Discord app that I was aware of. It was used to communicate between the kids in school. And then through scrolling through that app, I've identified a group of children from his class and cohort. And there were comments were specifically targeting him on that racial aspect. Comments such as hope Hamas kills your family, hey Hitler, hope your family in Israel is going to be killed, and others.
I might ask the operator to call up a copy of the Discord chat, which is at stat.899.0001.0279_R, which is an extra ACF to your statement, which is the screenshots of that chat. And I might just note at this point that that chat will not be displayed on the live stream, but will be displayed in the hearing room monitors. Now, Witness ACF, in light of the technical arrangements, I might just read some of the Discord messages and ask you about them. So, on the first page on the left-hand side, there's a message from the 4th of September 2024 at 9:50 p.m. And the statement's redacted, but it's a reference, I think, to another child. It says that child is literally your only friend. Stupid grouch-looking Discord mod. You're probably both Israeli and cousins. I hope Hamas bombs your fat asses. Did you recall reading that message at around the time that you discovered the phone?
I probably, yes. There was quite a few messages out there, so I actually took the screenshots of these messages and created this material for the school to use and present that in the school.
And then on the right-hand side of the same exhibit, there's a poll that's been created, and there are two options, both of which are fuck Israel. Do you see that?
Yes.
And did you have any discussion with your son about these posts?
Yes, I had to have a conversation with my son around what is anti-Semitism, and just to explain to him that he has done nothing wrong by being an Israeli and Jewish. It's whoever put these messages out there on the wrong side.
And if I could go forward a few pages to the page ending in _0002. Do you have a copy of that page handy? Or can you see that page on the screen?
Yes, I can see that.
And just directing your attention to some of the posts without necessarily reading their content. On the left-hand side of the page, there's a post that has a blue box around it from the 4th of June. And there's similar language describing your son in derogatory terms by reference to the descriptor Israelian. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then if you go over to the right-hand side of the page, you'll see that there's a post from the 4th of August 2024 from 3:36 p.m. That in general terms is suggesting harm with respect to your family. How did you feel when you read those types of posts?
It's obviously it's horrifying. It's not something that you would want your child to go through. And I want to say that my kids are not easily identifiable as as Jewish or Israelis. Most of their lives they've been in Australia, and they look completely fit in. But they never hidden that fact that they were born in Israel and that they're Jewish. I was quite horrified looking at that, and it's something that I have seen has significant impact on my kid as well. Looking at these messages and how he behaved, he was obviously withdrawn and he was sad, and there was a level of concern how he is going to go back to school.
And if you go down two messages, again, I don't propose to read this out, but there's reference to fairly grotesque sexual violence. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And further up the page, on the 4th of August 2024 at 3:35 p.m, there's the statement, "I hope Israel gets nuked," and then a racial slur. Do you see that?
I don't see it, but I remember that comment.
That statement. And how did you broach these topics with your son when you discovered these types of messages?
So we had to really quickly to come up with something to make him feel loved. And it was really around explaining to him that they're his family who is looking after him and loving him, and these are not real friends. And I saw how the fact that he considered naively these kids as part of his friendship circle, how those comments deeply hurt him.
Now I might just ask the operator to go forward to the page ending in _0004, which is at PDF 5. And there are two blue boxes highlighted on these screenshots. If I could deal with the one on the left, which is from the 4th of June 2024, it says you should kill yourself, and on the other side on the right, there's a reference to a slogan associated with Nazism. What was your reaction to those two comments in particular?
Horrified. That's the only thing I can say here. Look, I was born in the Soviet Union. I left not by choice, because my parents took me to a place where we were not supposed to be afraid or hurt being Jewish, and that threw me back to that same period of time. What I felt as a kid, that's how I believe my son felt as well when reading these comments.
And then finally, the next page, ending in _0005. And I think we discussed before the use of polls in Discord. Do you recall that discussion?
Yes.
And on this slide, there's two polls that the first of which says, "Does anyone like?" and then your son's name, and the second one on the right-hand side, "Should your son's name kill himself?" What was your reaction to seeing polls on these topics on your son's phone?
Yep. As an adult, we have more tools to deal with situations as similar to the presenters. As when you're putting something in front of a child, especially by people that are close circle, friends, it can have a very serious effect. So we were really focused on giving him love, showing him that he's loved. There are people who care for him, to make him feel that he's not alone.
And I think in your statement you also described explaining to him the history of anti-Semitism. Is that right?
Yes.
And also the use of tropes. Is that another topic that you discussed?
The use of tropes. Can you explain that?
Well, the use of stereotypes with respect to Jewish people. Is that something that you discussed with your son?
Yes, 100%.
And
we discussed the fact that the words were specifically chosen based on his background, based on his specific identity, and we discussed that.
And what did you do about the Discord messages once you discovered them in terms of your son's school?
So the first thing to do was to disconnect him from all the, well, that was the only social media platform that he was actually on. So that was the first thing to do. And the second was immediately to contact the school with all the materials, make sure that this incident is going to be dealt as immediately.
And what did the school do in response to that report?
So when we initially contacted the school, it was still during the holidays, and on the first day of school, that was the first opportunity for us to meet with the principal assistant to discuss the matter. Now, we presented all the information that we had it wasn't the principal, I think it was the principal deputy or principal assistant. We've been told that the families will be contacted and the information is going to be presented, and it's all the parents and the kids will individually discussed with. I did not receive confirmation, but I believe that happened. Not sure about what exactly was discussed and what information was communicated.
And in terms of your son's engagement and participation in school, did the incident have any effect on that?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we asked the school is to have closer look after the son, especially during the school breaks. He was invited to for a chat with one of the school leaders, and he ensured that if he needs any support or if something happens, so he can reach out to him, which was a sort of positive step. Now, despite the supports we did have a couple of incidents. At one point, students that were involved in the bullying were blaming him, that he reported them to the school. So that was that's how I had sort of got to the understanding that potentially the school discussed with the parents or the kids. Then on another incident, I think it was the first week when Iran attacked Israel directly. One of the kids came to him and said, well, if he's happy that Iran is bombing Israel. So that was a second incident. When that happened, I actually messaged the deputy principal and said that I'm going to go to the police if it's not going to stop. And I was advised that this was reported to the Department of Education. But again, I haven't received any information or confirmation that actually happened. And following that incident, there were no repeat incidents, so I had not reported to the police. Now, the impact, the direct impact that I can see is how my son chooses friends. I think I've mentioned that he came from very social sort of environment where he had different friends, different backgrounds, to a situation where kids who actually come to our homes, are from a Jewish background. So he still plays with other kids at school. He tells us, we keep asking him all the time, who did you play with, to sort of ping and understand his surroundings, but he's keeping his guards up, and I think he's filtering based on, if the person is similar background to him, in order to let the guard down and befriend. This is how he chooses his friends.
And have you observed changes in the friends he brings home as well?
100%. So that's the main indication of the kids that he actually brings home are from that Jewish Israeli background.
Now, in your statement, you provide some general reflections on trends in anti-Semitism in recent years. Could you share some of those reflections with the Commission?
Yes. So I feel that the recent environment in Australia has very negative impact on the Jewish community, and that comes in the form of actual anti-Semitic attacks, such as arsons and graffitis and on Jewish places. But also there's a fear in the Jewish community to attend certain areas, like central business districts where protests are constantly happening, which are directly aimed at the Israeli and the Jewish community. So that has increased the insecurity and the fear along the Jewish community in Australia.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I think I finished.
And do you also have any reflections on the use of social media platforms like Discord within schools?
I think that there's a very good step towards banning use of social media up until a certain age. I really welcome that because I think that this is not maybe the main factor, but that's one of the environments where things can get out of control really quickly because kids don't know how to deal with those chats and group chats especially. But I think it starts, so the Discord and the social media platform is just the playground for the general environment, in the change in the general environment that happened in Australia in the last few years.
And do you have any views about how the issues Jewish people have faced in recent history are dealt with in education more broadly?
In my opinion, there should be more emphasis on delivering the traumatic, unfortunately, experience that the Jewish people went through in not that distant history, and there are different means of doing it. Unfortunately, it is a traumatic experience for the mind of a teenager or not an adult, but that definitely has an effect on the perception, the humanity, and there are different ways of doing it. I know that different countries take kids directly to the location where the horrible events happened, but there are technological tools these days to enable that experience through a VR or other measures that we need to bring into schools and bring the history, keep the history alive as much as possible to pass it to the younger generations, so that they will be educated on what happened, what can happen, and how these things evolved to make sure that it's not happening again. And I think by educating, by putting the kids, the teenagers, through that experience at a younger stage, although it is a traumatic experience, but that would reduce the chances of something like that happening again to the Jewish community or any other minority, any other community in general.
And just to clarify that, when you referred to VR, you're referring to the use of virtual reality headsets. Is that correct?
Virtual reality headsets, yes, or different virtual reality spaces that can deliver experiences very close to the real environment.
And finally, do you have any closing observations that you'd like to make at the end of your evidence?
I appreciate the fact that I'm speaking to the Royal Commission today. I think it's a great step towards understanding what is happening around Australia, and I hope that there will be measures implemented because everyone else, Jewish kids as well, they deserve to live without fear and able to present their identities. I think that my son should be able to wear his Star of David, walking around the streets comfortably and say where he was born and what his identity. And unfortunately, currently this is not the situation. He cannot do it. It's not safe to do so in Australia, in many locations around Australia. We just don't feel that it's safe to do.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't have any further questions.
To assume, unless I have an application to the contrary, that the bar table has no questions of this witness. Thank you, sir. You are now excused. And with almost flawless timing, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to adjourn the Commission until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.